Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Apostate Aladdin. Today's stream is a chance for ex-Muslims to call in and talk, share some of their stories. Could be happy stories, sad stories, whatever it is you need to get off of your mind. I'm hoping to give the callers an opportunity to share that in 10 or 15 minutes or so each, hopefully, so we can take a lot of callers. I believe we already have 4 waiting. Um, I apologize, my throat hurts, so it sounds a bit weird, but don't worry, it's not infectious, and I have a mask anyway, so I knew that was gonna come in handy someday. Before we begin, I just wanna mention that I have a few videos coming up, and I have a second channel that I am plugging in the description, a channel called Aladdin Reads, where I will be doing, some readings of stories and so on, something that has nothing to do with religion or this topic, in case you just wanted to listen to me read some stories. So that's going to be in the description. And those of you who did join the channel, become a member of the channel. If you want to use your emojis that I made for you, if you're here in the live stream, feel free to have fun with it. Yeah, so I'm going to take the first caller right now. The first caller is Kaz. Kaz, I'm going to add you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, that's really awesome. I just want to say thank you for the content that you put out, the content that you make. And I originally found you on TikTok. Living in my Muslim country, it's pretty much the Islam HQ, if you know which country that is. But yeah, no, I was secretly just enjoying your content and looking for new stuff every time. And then I found you made a YouTube channel. I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And then you started doing these live streams with the callers, and I was on a road trip about yesterday is when I found out you did these things, and I was like, oh God, I want to be on this one day. And here we are.
Yeah, you didn't wait long since finding out. Well, I'm glad that you're here, and
Yeah, no,
thank you.
left work early just to be here.
Well, thank you for taking the time, and I appreciate the compliments. And you know what? It makes me sad that some people have found me through TikTok, and I'm not there anymore because I keep getting booted off. But soon enough, I might go back there again and hopefully come across more people like yourself. But anyway, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. Basically, the thoughts that I wanted to share was how I became ex-Muslim, and what that process was like growing up, and then becoming ex-Muslim after I went to college. So I'm from, a country with a green flag. I'm half Korean, and I used to be like super religious. I was the guy who read all of the stuff, the hadith, the Quran, everything like that. And actually, my family was less religious than me, and they would come to me for questions, and I would quote different hadith and everything like that, and different all that good stuff, all that stuff. And then I went to college in the UK, and I met lots of different people from different walks of life, and the LGBTQ community, and they became like my best friends, and they were some of the nicest, kindest people that I've ever met. And then I came out myself as bisexual. I was very fruity, anyways. But and just the comparison when I'd see how these people who back home they would curse him and they say such terrible things and call them abominations, and they're just genuinely good people, and they're not the ones cursing. It's the people back home who are. And it just opened my eyes to like maybe not everything's what it seems. And so then I started going down the rabbit hole, as many of us are familiar with, for Islam. And the biggest beef I have, well, actually, the thing that started me to think about it was Islam's claim to perfection. Islam claims to be perfect, and it claims to have the be-all, end-all message from the moment it was revealed until the end of time. And that is a very, very fragile claim, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's hard to defend, right?
Yeah, because I feel like when you claim absolute timeless perfection, you find one thing, you find one issue that isn't perfect, and that just gets you thinking. And I'm assuming, most of us have probably had a thought similar to that.
I don't know about most, but a lot of us have, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had the same thought, which is, even if something, looks suspicious, but there's an answer
Mm.
to make it make sense, that's still somewhat of an imperfection, isn't it?
It's mental gymnastics, as you like to put it.
Yeah, I mean, even if that mental gymnastics ultimately does make sense, it is imperfect for
It is.
something to seem skeptical. I mean, to cause suspicion and to look bad, even if it isn't. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
imperfection. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so I looked at that claim to perfection, and then I was thinking about my friends in the UK, and they're gay, obviously. Some of them are trans, and you know it it just doesn't feel just, the rulings in Islam about gay people, the punishments, the stoning and all of that stuff. And at the end of it, Islam gives just a couple of quote unquote solutions. It's either, stop being gay, which is not a thing. That's not how it works. Or, another one is force yourself into a fake marriage with someone of the opposite sex and, lie to them and lie to yourself and lie for the rest of your lives. You're not doing yourself justice, and you're not doing this, supposed partner justice either. Could you imagine how heartbreaking that would be for the spouse? That's terrible. And Islam claims to be a religion of justice, so that doesn't seem just. What's the other alternative? Just live a loveless life. That doesn't sound very just either, and it sounds cruel. So what are they to do? And I've asked people this in a very sly way to not out myself, but no one ever has an answer. No one has a convincing answer. They're like, oh, in the afterlife, everything's great. I'm like, okay, what
Hey,
if,
about that in the
yeah,
afterlife, do you think, or I don't know, the people who give you the answer, do they think that everything's great, as in they're gonna get gay partners or they're gonna be
exactly,
tempted?
right? That's,
Yeah.
I asked them that, they're just like, oh, I don't know, God will like brainwash you with some shit. But yeah, what if a gay man doesn't really want 72 hoodies and a giant pearl? That's it just doesn't make sense. And what about, in terms of justice for Aisha, 6 and 9? Come on, like,
Well,
make
what do you think of this explanation of, why God basically, as you said, a gay person has two options in Islam, either to pretend or force themselves or something, which some might even tell you is bad. Like I can see a Muslim saying, actually, it would be haram to do this because you are lying and whatever.
yeah,
So the obvious option would be, if you truly are not attracted to the opposite gender or sex, then you just stay single and die alone, right? Like
they would
no
tell you that,
love.
wouldn't they? They have
Well,
told me that.
so what do you think of the answer that that is their test? That if they do that, they get rewarded and all that stuff.
In my opinion, that is cruel and unjust. And if God, should he exist, is merciful, all loving, all kind, all understanding, where is that in this situation? It doesn't exist in this situation. It's like it doesn't align with it. And if you got this one thing where God is actually not this, God is not just, he is cruel, he is unfair, then that just breaks the chain. It breaks the facade that's been put up there. It's not perfect anymore, is it?
But that's I agree with you, but that is very similar, the logic of why would he make someone, put them in a very cruel, unfair, difficult situation to so-called test them. Well, he does that with people who cannot afford to eat, or people with disabilities. So what differentiates forcing them to be single and die alone from these things, these so-called challenges or tests?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are people who have all sorts of challenges. People are born into terrible situations, live terrible lives, and pass away or die in these situations. And we can assume that, oh, this is a test for that. This is a test for this. Oh, that one makes a little bit more sense, but they're all just a test. Or we can just acknowledge that God doesn't exist, and bad things happen, and people are gay. That's not a bad thing. I'm just saying this is a separate thing. People exist. People live lives, good and bad. It doesn't make sense to me. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I just thought of as I was posing that question to you?
What?
As the difference between these situations is, If you see a poor person, you can help them and feed them and hope to get them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of these situations, like if you see a disabled person, try to make their lives as easy as possible, or with
Exactly.
medicine, like help them out.
Yeah.
But if you see a gay person, you're telling them remain how you are, or like get
Just
conversion
suffer.
therapy, or just suffer because Allah wants you to suffer, even though there are obvious solutions like, get in a relationship or get married. But
Find love in you, and they always make it about sex.
Yeah.
It's love. What's so wrong with two consenting adults? I mean, at least they're adults in this situation.
throwing shade at Muhammad. Okay, I see.
Yeah. And it's just really, it doesn't, none of this makes sense to me. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I know there was another thing, but what do you think?
Of those reasons, I mean, I also had a similar, well, it's kind of similar line of thought where when I first met people from the LGBT community, everything I knew about them was, the rumors and
Yeah.
whatever in our culture we get to talk about them. And by that, I don't just mean that it's a culture and religion is faultless. I mean, they're known that way in culture because of the ideas that religion have painted
Exactly.
about them. And then when I met people like that, I thought all the stereotypes. And then I realized, no, it's the same thing, except they like the same gender. I mean,
Yeah.
they're people. So that was confusing to me, but it didn't shake my faith more than other things that were already going on in my head.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of the things that were on my mind. But it extended to similar to what about, disbelievers who genuinely don't believe in that religion? How do they deserve torture and so on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I wholeheartely agree. And I was actually at the mosque a couple months ago, unfortunately, for Friday prayer with my family. That it feels longer when you're ex-Muslim, it just takes longer. But they were giving a sermon about gay people, and he was like, yeah, gay people, they need to be thrown off a cliff. They should be stoned. That's the just thing. That's what God wants. They need to be murdered. I'm just listening to this. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Look at my brother, and he's just like zoned out. He's, I'm listening. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is this? Yeah, it's really
so normal. Like it's part of everyday life to talk about these
and
issues.
those people, those gay people, the LGBTQ community, they don't say that about you.
No.
They don't call for your death and execution, throwing you off a cliff and stoning you. I mean, do these people even know what stoning even looks like? Jeez.
You know what, that crossed my mind a lot of times. I was thinking, okay, say someone does met all the conditions for a punishment or something. How do you really do it? Like, we're not talking about the worst people in humanity, like someone who cheats, for example.
I
don't condone cheating, and I think obviously they should, you should give the person who was cheated on their rights in the separation and everything. But to think of how graphic it is, it just couldn't sink in my head that this is the way that God, the perfect God, intended things to go. It was just very barbaric and primitive.
All merciful God, yeah. Yeah, it's terrible, and this was just one of the many things. Don't even get me started on predestination and it's written, your fate, qadr.
Yeah.
And just so many other things. And I don't want to take too long, but those are just my thoughts, and I needed to get it out somewhere. So thank you so much for this. And
well, I want to know, when do you ever get a chance to talk about this to people around you, and I'm not encouraging you to, I'm just curious if that happens.
I do. Yeah, there's one friend of mine. He's local and he's like Muslim, and I ask him these questions. He's a childhood friend of mine, and we talk about it. And he sees me as like a devil's advocate, but I'm actually just asking him logical questions and like waiting for a real answer. And he does so many mental gymnastics, and he says the whole culture, religion thing, and times have changed. And then my favorite thing to say is, that was back then. Well, I thought it was timeless. I thought, aren't these rulings supposed to stand until the end of time, until Jesus comes back and all that kind of stuff? He's like, yeah, but and he gets stumped, and he doesn't know what to think. And I'm like, look, I don't mean to give you a mental breakdown, but you brought it up.
Wait, are you the one who asked the questions, or?
Well, when you're in a car and you just talk about life and stuff, and he no one really brought it up, but he asked me a question and I asked back, and it's a conversation.
Yeah.
So it's and I'm closeted back home. This isn't even my real accent, just in case someone hears my voice and recognizes me.
You could do accents. Wow, I'm impressed.
Oh, dude. No, absolutely. So yeah, I'm doing this on my work laptop, but
they're gonna track you. The whatever your country's version of the CIA is gonna find you.
The black gems.
You're giving up too much information, man.
Oh, shit, you're right. But yeah, so I really enjoy your content, and I don't want to like abruptly say bye, but if you have any questions for me before I go, do you have anything, or are we good?
Not particularly. I'm glad you got a chance to talk about this. And by the way, Benjamin thinks you're awesome. I'm sure a lot of other people in the comments think so as well. Yeah, no, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by this detail that you're putting on an accent. I wish I could do that for a whole conversation. So
yeah, no, I love doing accents. I was thinking either this one or like my mom's Korean accent, but nah, that one's a little bit stupid, fake Harry Potter British one. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate everything that you do. You make great content, and hate is gonna hate, and yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Kaz, and happy to have you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. All right, so thank you, Kaz, for calling. I'm going to take the, oh, a little too late now, but Marco was asking, do Aladdin's accent. I'm going to take the next caller, but I just need to respond to a private chat for a second. Let me read a couple of comments that I had starred. So, Fatima says, honey for your throat. Prophet Muhammad already recommended it. Yeah, I did take honey. And it's funny because when I read this, I thought the person was starting the conversation or the comment by saying, honey, you should do this. I'm like, but yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Happy Camper, thank you for the super chat, says, please consider joining Apostate Aladdin's Patreon. He's the one shilling it, not me. So, I get a pass for that. But thank you, Happy Camper. That's very nice of you. There's one that's kind of controversial, so I don't know if I'm going to read it, but I'll start with this one. Ninja Mommy, Islam is perfect, people aren't. As I've said before, I disagree with that. And okay, so I want to address this because it's, I'll tell you my opinion because people keep bringing this up often. Carlo says, the pretty serving boys in heaven suggests gay sex. I don't think so. So, there are verses, or don't quote me on multiple verses, but I think that there's at least one verse about غِلْمَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ. They're servants, young servants, boys, and they're described as being in heaven. They're كَاللُّؤْلُؤِ الْمَنْثُورِ. They're like pearls spread around, which means they're very pretty, or some descriptor like that. I don't think the connotation is in any way sexual. It is weird, though, to see it from today's point of view, because why do you want servants in heaven, let alone children's servants? And my theory is it was a status symbol, like having many houses that you're promised in heaven, or big gardens and all that stuff. It's the material stuff that rulers and people would dream of back in the day when the Prophet was alive. So this idea that having many, not just a harem, but many servants around you is such a appealing idea to them. So I think that's the mention of it there. There have been people arguing or claiming that it has to do with something sexual. I don't think so. But yeah, I just wanted to put my opinion out there. So I'm taking the next caller. The next caller would be Kafir. And by the way, there's somebody asking in the private chat, they don't want to show their face. It's okay to connect, to just, accept the permissions from your browser to turn on the camera and mic. And you don't have to actually turn on the camera like everybody else. And I'll make sure the camera's not on. You'll see that as a display preview. Anyhow, I'm taking the next caller, which is Kafir. Kafir, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, Kafir, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, thank you.
Do I give an introduction?
Yes, please go ahead.
I recently became an ex-Muslim. After like reflecting on Islam itself, I started reading the Quran in English and I realized how violent it was. So I also started watching YouTube like Apostate Prophet and stuff. I was when they gave me these questions like about the pagans and stuff, and also I was gave me the question of so I'm a bit nervous.
Sorry, you're nervous to ask a question?
I'm a bit nervous. I'm not sure what to say.
You're not sure what to say on the stream, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's really up to you. Is there anything that's been on your mind that you're not able to share with people around you that you would like to talk about or tell people today?
Well, recently had a conversation with my mom about. I asked her what if I was a non-believer, and she said that I would kick you out. And I asked her how come I wouldn't do anything to you, and she said that non-believers are not welcome in our house. That also reminded me of the one of the hadiths that said that you should love Muhammad and Allah more than your relatives and stuff.
I'm
So
really sorry to hear that.
so I'm like slightly confused. Like, what should I do and stuff? Because like she told me that I need 20 years experience in order to make a decision about Islam. I should ask questions to Imam and stuff. But I'm afraid of going to the masjid because some of the questions I have are a bit offensive. Like I'm afraid if I ask, because the Quran was made 2 years after when the Prophet died, so I was afraid of asking, could the Quran be, for example, changed or corrupted by his companions or stuff?
Right. And you're too worried to ask that question to your imam because it would be perceived by him as offensive.
Yeah, and I also might be called a kafir or a non-believer, and also I'm afraid how my relatives will react because my uncles always go to the we have this class that's every day after us cinemas. So I'm afraid of asking a question and be outed in front of my family. It's also
Oh,
because I may have done something bad to my cousin because he also outed himself as a apostate, and I wasn't supposed to tell anyone, but I told my mother, and then she told his mother, and then his mother told his dad, and they had a fight. And then when I told mom that question about what if I was girlfriend, girlfriend, she said she would love me, of course. And then she said, "Are you acting like your cousin and stuff?" So I'm slightly conflicted on what I should do. Should I continue questioning Islam and stuff, or just keep my mouth shut?
well, I'm really sorry to hear about all your worries about how you could be outed and your mom telling you directly what would happen if that's the case. I'm sorry to hear that. It must be very distressing, especially with your cousin as an example.
Hmm. But I
I'm
do have
sure.
some. Sorry,
Sorry.
can you carry on,
No,
please?
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
But I do have some comfort that my big brother is also an atheist because we had a chat about Islam and stuff. He also said that he didn't believe in Islam, so I do have someone that I could confide about it. But um, well, that's pretty much it.
Well,
Because we
I'd
had
like to know if you don't mind me asking, how old are you approximately?
I just turned 18.
Okay. I think you're in a stage right now in your life where it would be very difficult to have that kind of conflict with your mother or anyone in your family, where
Mhm.
it would really make it difficult for you to continue going to school or transitioning to the next, period of your life. So I know you have questions, and I know if you have urges to seek answers for them, you should do that, but try to do it in a way that doesn't compromise your safety. So look for answers online and not just listen to ex-Muslims, but listen to what the imams say online. That way you stay anonymous instead of going yourself to an imam and risking being outed. Um, and I'm sorry about your cousin. I'm sure you didn't mean to do that. You probably didn't expect that kind of reaction, did you?
That too, but I also did that because I thought like if I told my mom about it, I could guide him to Islam. Because that time I was trying to take Islam seriously and I was trying to actually believe in it. I also tried to read a mosque every day, but then as soon as 2022 started, I started having conflicted about my religion and stuff. Because as soon as I went past those videos of ex-Muslim stuff, I was wondering if they're true or not. So I researched them, and I saw the conflict between the pagans and Muhammad, and it was slightly violent, and also about Abdul Lahib, where Muhammad was cursing him on Surah 11, 111.
Abu Lahab, you mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was like wondering, like, how can you be so rude to your own relative and stuff, and how could you treat pagans like animals? Like he said he's gonna ambush them and stuff. So I was wondering, how can Islam be so peaceful if they're treating other people this bad? And the fact that Muhammad destroyed the idols and stuff, and when they're telling us to respect Islam while they go around destroying other people's religion and stuff.
I, I could tell you what I think about all of these topics and just give you the summary of what I found, but I know that it would satisfy you the most, I believe, if you keep doing your research, just without being obvious about it. Do not ask people in your life about these topics because, as you can tell, either they actually have never thought of them, or they have and they don't have the answers, or it could turn against you. So
Mhm.
be careful, and it's good to want to seek the truth. Just keep in mind your safety first. So you're glad, like, sorry, you're lucky, I'm glad, and we're lucky we have the internet now, so you can do a lot of this research from Islamic sources online. So that's what I'd urge you to do up until the point where you have an idea of what you believe and you're more at peace. Then you can put the topic aside and focus on
Mhm.
the next part of your life, because if you're not independent, tackling these issues with family is going to be very difficult.
Um, and also, my mother thinks I shouldn't like watch YouTube's on YouTube like videos of like imams and stuff with people that talk about Islam in a bad way. And the one that said that about the sword, when he said like convert to Islam or be killed or pay jizya stuff. She told me that don't trust those imams or scholars and stuff. She said that it could be Indians or Jews or something. That you shouldn't trust them, whatever. So whenever I were to like watch them, like there's violent imams or scholars online, she said don't believe them. Just go to the mosque and ask questions over there. But at the same time, I'm feeling slightly too nervous to do that because of the question I'm gonna ask and the fact that I'm gonna I'm I'm a bit too shy to ask questions as well to the moms in my mosque.
Well, so your mom thinks that any opinion that she deems is too ugly to be Islamic or something like that, that must be some Indian role playing as a Muslim, some Hindu, I suppose, right? Or some enemy of Islam, like a Jewish person, is what she's saying, right? Um, well, here's what I would tell you. It's not a good idea to have these conversations with someone who knows your identity, because, like you said, it could backfire. They could talk in the community or to your family about it. but there are sheikhs of very varying opinions online, and whoever you listen to, look at their sources and go and continue your search. Don't just stop at whatever their opinion is. That will reassure you a lot more. At least that's how it worked for me, because now I know which sheikh is exaggerating or doesn't actually is lying or so on. And try not to have too many of these conversations with your mother at this point, because again, your safety comes first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm sorry for the situation you're in, and I'm glad you called in today. I hope you feel better after sharing all of this with us.
yeah, thank you. This really helped.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, I'm gonna go now. Bye.
All right. Have a good day. Talk
You
to you
too.
later. Bye bye. All right. Thank you again, Kafir, for calling in. Um, I will take the next caller, but first I will read some chats. So, stop scamming, man. Thank you for the super chat. Haven't seen you in a bit. Um, on the one hand, Muslims boast of the richness and beauty of the language God chose, yet Persians were actually the go-to for beauty and sophistication. The Ottoman aristocracy used it, and Rumi, etc. So I don't have much of a comment on that at the moment, because I am not that well versed on the history of that region yet. So yeah, I'll I'll just read the comment. But thank you again. Can I Kiwi says the origin of the Ghilman story is the story Ganymede, the beautiful boy Zeus kidnapped to make the boy his wine pourer in Olympus. That's basically the role of Ghilman boys in heaven. I don't know if that's the origin. I'm curious about why you claim that is actually the origin or inspiration of it. I know that that was a theme of having servants or slaves. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that is, but thank you for sharing. Um, and yeah, I think that is pretty much it. There is a Muslim here in the back room. I do have a long queue, and you're at the end of it. But also, the chat today is supposed to be for ex-Muslims to call and share. I do have other streams where I ask Muslims, "Why do you believe?" You can call in one of those. Should be the next live stream that I do, hopefully. Um, Tariq says to add to Aladdin's comment, be prepared to be shocked because you are going to learn a lot. The real truth of this religion is what made me disgusted by it. Yeah, Kafir, I believe there's going to be a lot for you to learn and process. So I wish you luck with that. And thank you, Tariq, for the nice comments you left earlier. I can't see it anymore, but yeah. Okay, so I am taking the next caller. The next caller is Moe. Moe, I am adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, Moe
Hi,
Phobe, how's it going?
not bad. How are you doing? Apostate Aladdin.
I am good, thank you.
All right. So yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for hosting all these awesome live streams, making all this awesome content, and it's really helped me. I know it's helped a lot of other people as well.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I just want to come online, and I want to share my experience, and yeah, and then obviously maybe get enlightened by you guys. So I guess if it's okay, I'll just explain. I'll briefly tell my story. Now I am living in Canada, as I also mentioned in the chat, but I obviously did not grow up here. And so my story is such that my parents were, you could say, moderately conservative Muslims, and before going to university, I happened to hear a sermon, and that sermon was because I was religious too, and that sermon inspired me, and then I became motivated to read the Quran myself in English. And but the problem was that from the very beginning, I just couldn't wrap my head around all the violent teachings, and everything that simply didn't make sense. But unfortunately, how we are taught to and so quote unquote understand Islam is we just rationalize it. Oh yeah, it makes sense, but you have to do some mental gymnastics where it makes sense. And then the thing was that eventually I hit a point where I went I've had enough. I I can't do this anymore. And I'll tell you, like, the verse that specifically like really made me put down the Quran was 4:11. And 4:11 says that, basically says that whenever you're forming a contract, inform take two women as witness or one man. And I just couldn't understand that how could an omnipresent, omniscient God, an all-knowing God, pass down such a commandment. I mean, how can a God say that objectively every woman is half as dumb as a man, or half as smart as a man? And that I just
Or
thought
half
that,
as like her memory is half as good as a man's, even if you just,
exactly.
like keep it
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Actually, memory. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, okay, you can make a case to say that, okay, back in those days, women, men used to participate in wars and all these social affairs, but you can still not say that every woman will necessarily have, half the memory of a man. Because, and the thing is that I personally know women in my family who have really good memory. I mean, all my brother, my dad, my uncles, they have their skills, but I know that certain women in my family, they're really good with memory. So how could a God put this down as a commandment, as an objective, universally applicable commandment? And I just put down the Quran and I was like, you know what? I have to research this more. I have to listen to different perspectives. And
So
then,
did
sorry.
you come across the opinion, the excuse, might I say, that back in those days, men were the ones doing the financial dealings, and that's why God would.
Yes,
So what do you think of
yes,
that? Sorry, let
exactly.
me
So,
finish
okay.
it for
Yeah,
those
yeah,
who
sure,
don't
sure,
know.
sure.
So the idea is that back then women weren't as involved in commerce or finance and all that, so they wouldn't necessarily remember or witness a trade deal. So that's why you should bring two women, but men would be more involved with these issues. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So the thing is that, okay, first of all, that, modern psychologists know that intelligence isn't just one word. There are different kinds of intelligences. Memory is one kind of intelligence, and then, your other kinds of intelligence to, for logic and planning. That's a different part of your brain that controls that. Obviously, God should have known that. Okay. I, as a psychology layman, hobbyist, know that. So God should have known that. Okay. And now God necessarily puts down that no, treat women as though they're half as, we can say, their retention power is half that of man's. I just didn't make sense. Like, I was like, how the hell can God say that? Anyways, so then basically, and then I put down the Quran. I started, talking to other people. I started listening to some atheist YouTube channels. I came across Abdullah Zamir. He really helped me out a lot. And eventually, I, became convinced that, I'm actually, I don't believe in any of this. Now this makes more sense. I'm an atheist. Now, the thing here is that, I want to also, like, I know I sort of feel for the last caller, Kafir, and I'll just tell him like what my experience was. Maybe that'll help him. So the thing is, I was still in university second year when I basically decided that I am an atheist. Okay. And the thing is that for me personally, I thought that was like a really good feeling. I felt really good. That basically the world, everything, just everything in the world made a lot more sense. That, I just now know everything, how everything works, basically. So yeah, so then basically I basically hid it from everyone around me that I have, decided to be an atheist. And you can say that I was, after like roughly 3 or 4 years, when I was financially independent, established in my family. I mean, sorry, established in my job. It's actually quite recent that I came out to my parents that I'm an atheist. I did come out to my brothers and sisters. Now, I personally happen to be in a lucky spot because most of my close friends are non-Muslims anyway, and they were fine with it. They were like, "It doesn't bother us if you're, Muslim or not." My brothers and sisters took it well. My family, on the other hand, they didn't take it so well. They were like, and the thing is that what they said was, that it's so saddening to see that you're such a good son, you're such a good person, but how could someone like you, take such a wrong path in terms of
It's
religion?
yeah, it's
And
linked
then I
to
was,
how good or sometimes how obedient you
yeah.
were as a kid or how good you did in school and all that, like all the good things. They can't imagine something so horrible with the rest of it. Yeah.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I internally I wanted to say, hey guys, you know what? Partly you guys are responsible for it. You raised me to be a good person. You raised me to be an educated person. Think logically. Maybe you should. Yeah. Anyways, but that's just joke aside. Like, the thing is, so yeah, that's exactly it. And yeah, but you see, the other thing is that, like I already mentioned, that my family were, those modern Muslims. Like they weren't radical Muslims, that support ISIS. They all think that ISIS is against Islam, Taliban were against Islam, and all those things. But the thing is, now I even go so far as to say that had my parents grown up in the same circumstances as me, they would have probably left the religion too, and I'm pretty sure this is true for a lot of the families in South Asia and maybe even Middle East. So yeah, so anyway, so long story short, like the thing is that like when I came across you guys, I became, I would say, excited and enthusiastic, because you guys are doing really good work, and I think that we should treat this as an activism. And the thing is, we should, I would even go so far as to say that maybe we should treat atheism as a religion on its own, given the state of the world we are in right now. Because if we have to treat this as a activism, then we have to. I just think that we should be model people, and we should show the people that atheists are actually good people, and we are all coming from good places. And I'm pretty sure that all of us, like, we are not completely closed off to religion. The thing is, if
Sorry,
say if
you.
there were to ever be a 100% logical proof to come down from the sky that hey, there is a god. Sorry, did I cut out?
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you
what I'm
cut
saying
out
is
for a
that
second,
say
but yeah,
if there
go.
were to be such a thing as
Mhm.
sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry. Okay, I'll try to move closer to the mic. Yeah. If there were to be such a thing as there is a god and he sends down some undeniable proof that he exists, well, I have no problem in start worshiping him. But I'm not coming from a bad place and thinking, hey, I just don't have that evidence, so why should I even believe in it? And yeah,
You know
the other
what's
thing
funny
is that
though?
you see,
I've
even
spoken to some
yeah,
people who have made a good case for, even if I got the proof, like if God came and commanded it, then I might not worship. And I thought, oh, so you're being stubborn. And then they explained it to me. And then actually one of those people is Jasmine. She's in the chat right now.
okay,
And it made sense to me once they put it that way. So I I kind of disagreed at first, right? I was more
hmm,
on your side. I was thinking, okay, if God came and proved himself, then of course I have no choice but to do it, or else I'm going to be tortured and so on. But I'm not going to love him or respect him and so on. But then Jasmine and other people had told me, so what's the point? Because God knows what your intentions are. So that brings that
yeah,
begs the question:
yeah. But
Does God
what I'm
want you
trying to
to
say
like?
is, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so
No, no, go ahead,
would
please
you
go.
still do it even though God knows your intention is just to not go to hell? Or would you actually love and respect God if God existed, like Allah came down and told you he
Well,
exists?
yeah. Well, you see, when I said that if God exists, I would, it would depend. It would actually depend, right? First of all, yeah, like Jasmine said that, yeah, if the God is Allah, who is going to send me to hell for not worshiping Him, then yes, I'm going to only worship Him to save myself from hell. But say there is a different God who's, which I don't know, just hiding away for whatever reason, and turns out that he is actually a good person or whatever, then yeah, then in that case, I wouldn't have a problem worshiping Him.
So,
Yeah. So
and
that
here's
was
the
my
thing, because
position.
some people have a huge problem with the idea of worship itself, because they think, why does a God need the worship? Who does it benefit? Right? Does it benefit the God? So what compels you to say, I would
Hmm.
absolutely worship a
No, that's
good
also a good
God?
point actually. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, I'm curious about how you think about it. What
okay.
compels you to say
So I
you
would say
would
basically,
worship a good
like
God?
worship would comprise different. Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a bit of a
No,
lag. That's why it sounds
because the
like
thing
I'm
is, I would say
talking
that
over.
first of all, worship could come.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm saying that worship, it could comprise different words. Worship could comprise different things. Like if worship just means, oh, just firing praises at this God, then maybe I would, have my reservations. But if worship means other things, like, oh, do good or do something that I actually need, something like that. Like I would assess the action that the God is asking me to do as worship. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what
Okay,
I mean.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but the other thing that I wanted to actually also say was that the other thing that bothers me is really smart people who are willing to, be quote unquote these modern Muslims, but they're afraid to admit to themselves that, they can actually think that all of this is wrong. Because people say that when I came out to so and so, like I came out to some person, and when told them I was a Muslim, they told me that, yeah, I've read tafsir, it didn't make sense to me too, but hey, faith has to be strong, we have to take it on faith and blah blah blah. But you can admit to yourself that this is wrong, period. You don't have to say that, no, if Islam says some way somehow 2 plus 2 equals 22, you don't have to say that in some way that's true. You can say that this is wrong. So yeah, so that's one thing that I advocate that. I think like
Oh,
that's why like we need
I mean, for some people, it's the fear, right? It's the fear of,
exactly.
yeah. For others, it's just simply there are things that once you've set in your head since you were young, or since you were in a state of not questioning at the time,
Yeah,
it's almost given as a fact that you it takes effort and conscious pondering to question it, and not everyone has that mentality about things. So sometimes
exactly.
some people who have things like I think people who have things like OCD, for example, would be more obsessive about thinking about something, and either it would lead them down a very dark path with Islam, or it would make them realize, okay, I really need to figure this out, and that compels them to admit it, you know.
No, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, OCD, I would say, is still an extreme example, but you're right about the fear. It's exactly the fear, and I think that is what we need to tackle. We need to let people, make people less feared. And the other thing is, like in Greek mythology, there used to be three kinds of afterlives. One was the super nice heaven where all the martyrs and soldiers went, and then there was hell where really bad people went. But then there was also a middle place where middle people, average people went, and because of that, I think that because there was also this other you can say middle ground for average people were actually not afraid to think outside of the box. People were actually not afraid to wonder if this was false. And the thing is that in Islam and Christianity, it took that away. It's necessarily a very, very harsh punishment if you disagree with it. And I think if we should, like the work you guys are doing, it should be one of the aims, one of the, like I would say active aims should be to get people to realize, hey, hell is not real. Feel free to say, hey, so and so teaching is garbage, like that. So yeah, that was another thought that I want to express. Yeah. And
It sounds easier than it is actually in practice,
no,
but
you're
yeah,
absolutely right. But
mm,
hey, I mean, I guess the aim should be there in the mind.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah,
said something interesting about maybe atheism should be a religion, and I've heard that before. And the thought process is, correct me if I'm wrong, that then you'd have a label to, first of all, for representation and to get legal rights, just like churches can have, or religions can have certain rights and exceptions made for them, and so on, and protections. Um, is that what you mean? That's why you want atheism to be a religion or be one of the religions?
Mm, no, not even that. No, uh, but I'm just saying that as a like people should think that they're part of something. So even if they're not part of it legally, if they don't have that label, but people should just feel that there is a community, and more and more people should have that feeling. I mean,
I
that's
agree
just
with
the
the
thing. Even if
idea
we
of
don't
that.
have like so quote unquote same rights, but
Yeah.
honestly, I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah.
I agree with the idea of that, but making atheism a religion is
Yeah.
messy
No, I wouldn't.
because it's you would have to have a central authority. You'd have to have
Yeah.
some kind of control over all of this, and that's the thing. It's hard to have a community without a shared purpose or a shared anything.
Yeah.
So the only thing that atheists have in common is lack of belief in God and varying meanings of what that means. So I
I
don't think
guess.
that would be
Yeah.
productive. But there are ex-Muslim communities, and that I think would be a more specific thing to achieve what you're talking about.
Yeah. I would say. Yeah. Okay.
Mm,
That it does make sense. Yeah.
yeah,
You're right about that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And finally, like this is just one more thing I want to say. Like I think you and Secular Spirit held a little. I think it was a live stream before, which I don't think I attended. It was basically if there should be secular events. I think that yeah, I didn't get to watch that live stream, but I think yeah, there should be more and more secular events and more and more of these.
Yeah, I wish it was. I hope in my lifetime that I
Yeah.
get to work on something more directly with ex-Muslim communities, like organizing something in real world. I know such organizations already exist, so I hope to contribute or start one. Um, but it's unsafe to do so at the moment. But hopefully, with time, we'll get there.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and yeah, and like people who are like still struggling with being in the closet, I would just finally say that yeah, just don't come out. Your safety, like you said, does come first, and just wait until you're financially stable. That's about it.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Apostle Aladdin. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure
Thank you
talking to
for
you.
being here. Likewise.
No problem.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye bye. All right. Thank you, Mo, once again. I'll read a few comments and then I'll get to the next caller, who is Arlo. And then Soleil, and then Preeti, and then the rest of the list is posted in the private chat. Some people have left the back room, so I will update the list in a minute. So if you're further down the list, hopefully you're not that far away. John Doe, though, thank you for the super chat, says, God has sent a clear book to the people. What clear book, though? Yeah, and in the same book, there is a verse about how some verses are clear, some verses are not. So which one is it? What's funny is I was just having this discussion with a friend who brought up the topic. It wasn't me, just a few days ago. So coincidence? Well, yeah, it's by no means a clear book. Even if everything in it made sense, it's not a clear way to make sense. You would have to go digging in other books that aren't even the clear book to find out the meaning of the clear book. So I agree with you that it's not there. Stop scamming, man. Again, thank you very much for the super chat. It says 20 million lives in danger from famine in East Africa. Meanwhile, on the Dawah scene, let's crowdfund for them to have Qur'ans, glossy booklets, and retreats so new converts can be in a controlled setting for 2 months. I am not familiar with that campaign. I don't disbelieve that. I just can't say that I know exactly what you're talking about, but it wouldn't be out of the question. I've seen a lot of campaigns about things like, oh, we need to turn this church into a mosque. And I'm thinking, why are you phrasing it that way? Like, is that really what you are trying to crowdfund here? Is that the most important thing to focus on at the moment? Not even to build a mosque. No, let's make it that antagonistic. But anyway, that's besides the point. It makes sense if you're coming from their point of view, that why would you just spend some money to create infrastructure or organizations or feed people, educate them, or even education. That's a very good example. Why would you educate someone in math and science and so on? Or maybe they're also doing that, but I'm saying it would make more sense to educate them in Islam so that when they die from their, very sad, difficult lives, they get to go to heaven. So that's their way of saving them. So I suspect if there is such a campaign, that's the motivation behind it. So to an outsider, it looks like very selfish and, might I say, idiotic. But to many of them, it looks noble and honest. And that's what's heartbreaking is a lot of these people, and there's a lot of sleaziness in the Dawah scene, but I mean, when it comes to religion, there's a lot of people who genuinely mean well. They just have a very convoluted view of the world, that their idea of what wellness is or the good outcome is far from reality. I would rather invest this money into something more productive than the elusive afterlife. A couple more comments. I haven't been keeping up with the new comments, but let's see. God sent Zakir Naik to tell everyone else is wrong, and Allah created Malaysia for Zakir Naik. Love the Zakir Naik shade being thrown around. Marco also says, I want a prominent Muslim to debate a Scientologist would be hilarious. Now, I would love to watch that, but I don't think Scientologists want that kind of attention. And yeah, they want more than the 2.5% that the Muslims are asking people to donate. Let's see. A couple more comments to read here. IERA is doing that with regards to the charity. I will look into that after the stream. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. But yeah, I did not know about that. Okay, so the next caller is, as I've said, is Arlo. Arlo, I am going to be adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Arlo. How's it going?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for what you do for the atheist community, the ex-Muslim community.
Thank you.
I'm not going to be on the call for that long because I have other things that I need to attend to. I'm mainly here to encourage those who actually. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
That's okay. No need to be.
I actually want to encourage those who are in doubt of Islam to forget Islam. If you're already doubting, you're on the right track.
Well, it's
That was
easier
my
said
only
than
message.
done. How do you tell them to forget it?
I mean, it's easier said than done because I've been through there before. I was Muslim at one point, and the way out of there wasn't all that easy. But I highly encourage those who can to make the commitment. You know who you are. Yeah, you know who you are. That's all.
Well,
Thank you.
for that encouragement. Take care, Arlo.
I will. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Thank you, Arlo, for your contribution. So a bunch of the callers left the, or potential callers, I suppose, unfortunately couldn't wait around. So even though I gave a list in the back, there's only about 5 people actually on that list. So I'm starting with Soleil in a second. Any comments that I missed? Yeah, I don't think so. But anyway, yeah, if you're able to, once you get all these doubts, remove yourself from all that confusion, take a step back if you're able to, and continue living your life. But it's not that easy. Yeah, you have to be convinced by either side. You know what? Some people are able to let it go for the meantime and think. And here's the trick to letting it go, if it's possible. Think, if you believe in an all-good, all-powerful, all-knowing God, it knows what you're thinking. It knows what you feel. It knows your intentions, and it knows your character, all of that. So it knows that you're not doing this maliciously, having these doubts or putting the issue aside or not being able to pray because you genuinely don't believe it. It knows that you're serious about all this, that it's not your fault. So if you believe in that kind of God, the all-knowing, all-good, all-merciful God, then hopefully you will have no problem putting it aside for a bit because you trust this God. You trust that it's not going to hurt you if you die immediately. It can empathize with you, hopefully. And before I go to the next caller, self-plug. If you want to listen to me read some stories or anything like that, check out my channel in the description, the second one. I will be uploading to it very, very soon. I already have a video on this channel that's similar to that style. But anyway, I'm taking Soleil in 3, 2, 1. Hey, Soleil, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Long time no talk.
Yeah, I missed you, Aladdin.
Yeah,
So
sorry I've been
yeah.
away for a bit. Yeah.
Oh no, it's normal. But it is I had a subject. It is about it. I wanted to talk about the burnout of activists. You know, because some time ago I had a lot of stress. You know, a friend of mine, activist, ex-Muslim, he has been hacked. You say hacked?
Yeah.
Yes, so Muslims have his address, his photo, everything. So I was really, really stressed about him. I was worried, but then now it is better. Now he moved out. He's safe.
Well,
But yes, it's
I'm
really
sorry for
yeah.
your friend, and it must be stressful on you too. And I'm angry,
Yeah.
to be honest, hearing that, because I know neither you nor I would ever leak the information of a known Muslim or something, like not even the most vile of them. So it bothers me that we're supposed to pretend like this not a systematic problem where it's expected that a Muslim could leak your information. It's sad. Well, sorry for your friend, and I'm glad to know he's in a better place now.
Yes, and we were a lot. We were very very strict in our security. But he was talking with a young Muslim, and this young Muslim he pretended to become an apostate. Then he sent him an app for hadith, and my friend he installed it, and then he had a virus, and it was a hacking. Yes,
That's pretty advanced. Like that's
yeah.
They're playing the long game. Wow. Okay. Well, let that be a lesson, people. Don't install any apps not from the stores. Unless you know what you're doing. Don't unless it's from the app store or whatever. But yeah.
But we are really. I tell to people, I have a podcast in Soleil Apostate and in a YouTube channel, and we are really we are not disrespecting Muslims. We are really cool. We are just telling our stories. We are just telling the verses which are problem for us, and that's all. We are not hateful. We are not bigots, racist. We are normal people, North African. You know, and people, some Muslims, they have a game. They want to track us, to hunt us. I don't understand why, and it confirms why I don't show my face.
It's messed up that even like your tone talking about it is very respectful. I don't know about you. I am respectful, but I also make jokes that I don't force anyone to listen to. But it's not like I have a platform on national television where I, broadcast it to everyone in the country. Me saying, making jokes about Muhammad, about things that Muhammad actually did or said, right? Like none of these are unfair characterizations of, or lies or anything. So I'm surprised that even you are getting that kind of attacked. It goes to show that no amount of respect would stop the backlash. So when people say, "What did you expect?" Of course they're going to get offended. You should tone it down. They like eventually you have to tone it down till you shut up, because all of this is going to keep happening no matter what you say or do.
Yeah. The only way they will allow me to speak is if I speak for Islam. If I promote Islam, then they will be happy. But they are dreaming. I will never do that. So I wanted to ask you if it is difficult for you to receive bad comments. People who are death threats. It is really, really negative for you. I wanted to ask you, how are you? How do you live it?
Well, okay, let's see. I've spoken about one time where it was more direct, or like I had to take the threat more seriously. Most of the time I just ignore them, or have fun with it if I'm really in the mood, just to dissuade people from doing that. But one time it felt like it could be real, and I had a conversation with that person and they ended up redacting what they said, which, people don't get used to that. Don't send me a death threat expecting me to answer. But honestly, it's been getting easier and easier to ignore, because you see how repetitive they are. And even when they do say something that is, that is hurtful, you think even a broken clock is right twice a day. So they're just throwing at you every single criticism, and just, talking crap about you. It's not original. It's not actually about you. It's about this fictional enemy that they have of this kafir. And I gotta say, like, getting off of Twitter helped a lot. There was a lot of people on Twitter that were just dedicated. There's still one person on Twitter who keeps screenshotting everything I do or say, and it's sad, but it helped me to stay away from the places where it's not productive for me to be there, and it's just hateful. And TikTok, unfortunately, it's very productive to be on TikTok, but it's also one of those sources of extreme toxicity. I've been dealing with it better and better with time. How about you?
Yeah. To be honest, I was really I didn't understand your question. What was your question?
How do you deal with this kind of hate and threats and all that stuff?
Oh, I'm really I am fragile. Each comment, it hurts me, but I become stronger each time I receive one. I become insensitive about it. Now I am stronger. I can resist. I had it's been a year since I began a podcast and a Discord group, and all my time beside the work, because I have a job, all my time I dedicated to the cause of ex-Muslims. I translated English videos into French. I did a podcast, and this year I did just that. ex-Muslim stuff. And I had a
Oh.
friend who called me. Oh, it's been a long time. How are you? And I was asking him what he did in this year. He said he began a dance lesson. He's playing soccer. He's doing sports. He's meeting girls and everything. And I said, "Whoa, he has a great life." But then, so I wanted to say, why am I hurting myself? Why am I? Why do I have to keep on going? But then I had a podcast with a woman. She said she took off her hijab. She's an ex-Muslim woman. She took off her hijab. She went to the beach and she swam. She went in the water and then she cried. You know, she cried her tears. And then I began to cry with her, and it was so intense, so powerful. I said, no, I cannot stop. So many people need to hear these stories, and you know, I do it for my sisters and my niece and my cousins because all of them they are wearing a hijab, jilbab in France. So I say I cannot convince them myself because I will have big problems, but I can help other young Muslims or ex-Muslims in France or in French countries, and so many people they count on me. You know, I have a heavy load on my shoulders. Maybe you feel the same.
Yeah, I feel you. Just maybe the last call-in live stream or the one before, I don't remember. The first caller told me that they found me on TikTok, which makes me sad that a lot of people used to find me on TikTok and they don't anymore. So I think of all the people who could have found me, not from a channel growth point of view, but because of what they say. They say this person said something along the lines of that they wouldn't be alive if they didn't come across my channel. And it made me feel extremely responsible, even though it's not my fault if someone doesn't come across my channel and unfortunately don't continue to live. It just makes me feel like if I have that ability to help them, I should be doing everything I can. It changed my perspective on. Did you say that you for the past year you've only been doing the podcast?
Yes, and working.
And working, yeah. And it's draining. It's so draining.
Yeah.
You know, after all of this, you wake up at 9 or before 9 and you do a whole day of work and pretend like the work matters. I don't know about you. I mean, I'm not saying my job is useless or anything. It's just that compared to the benefit that people get from the channel or from your podcast, it almost feels like meaningless to be focusing on a material job in a material world. And yeah, it does weigh heavy and it becomes a lot. Yeah. There's not much time to do other stuff. Like you're saying, your friend was living his life. It's hard to do everything at once. It's really hard. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I might be
but,
making
yeah.
I might be making some changes to my channel to have a better balance like that, but also make more videos.
Yeah.
So I will announce that at some point when I can.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that you are fine with your rhythm of work, and because I don't want you to stress too much and stop everything. You know, what you are doing, it has a big impact on the world, and you cannot quantify it. It's not only views, it's not only your subscribers, but your videos. They are on internet, and it will be a heritage for the next generation of ex-Muslims. And yeah,
Thank you.
so
I want to say the same to you. I mean,
Mm.
when it used to be discouraging to me, and I don't know if you feel the same way when you see one of their, by their I mean the Dawa people's bad
Mhm.
answers or bad videos, as in poor logic, obviously incorrect. The video would have 1 million views or something, and then you look
Mm.
at one of our content pieces, and it's a couple thousand views or something like that. I felt discouraged, but then I thought, eventually I started realizing I've put in, if I wanted to sit with each person one-on-one, I would spend hours with each person to try to get an idea across. Yet here I am spending that much time and getting the idea across to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands over, the whole span of the time. It's a lot more than you imagine, like it's a huge difference. So I hope you feel the same way.
Yeah, because your work, it will be useful for another ex-Muslim. Your job, it makes it easy for people after you, uh, because maybe one apostate, one activist, he can create 2 activists, and then these 2 they will create 4 activists, and then everyone will come out. It's a dream that everyone will come out, and yes, apostasy will become a normal thing.
Then
I
there won't
hope.
be any need for us like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. So the whole one activist brings to, I wouldn't have been here if I didn't already watch Abdullah Samir's channel and have an opportunity, a random string of events that led me to appear on his channel by voice. That I would have never done that. Like I was never planning on starting a channel or a podcast or anything. So if it wasn't for the previous generations of people who did this, we wouldn't be here. Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes I feel it's meaningless. Like you said, Muslims, they have millions of views, but I hope it is not meaningless,
It's not a
'cause,
competition, and
no,
and we're at the
yeah,
beginning of it still. I mean, it's
yeah,
just whatever change you can affect on your circle. That's all you should worry about.
yeah. Mhm. Well, thank you for everything, Aladdin.
Yeah.
I will let the next caller, because you have a lot of work tonight. You have a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we're gonna get to enough people. Yeah, there are people waiting. Well, yeah, thank you again for calling in. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night. Bye. All right. So I'll read a few comments and then I'll get to the next caller. And the next caller is Brahim. And to answer the question of the person in the private chat, you can introduce yourself. Everyone else already has. Okay, so first of all, I want to disagree with this comment that I saw by Shakil Zaman. Says, mentally weak people believe in religion because they are too scared to accept reality is cruel. I wouldn't call it mental weakness. Even a very mentally, I know people who are extremely mentally strong in what they endure in day-to-day life. More than you and I could combined, maybe. But that specific area, the kind of fear that it induces in some people is so primal and deep. It has nothing to do with strength or resilience or mental strength. I think it's unfair to characterize them that way. It's kind of like saying smart versus stupid. No, it's a spectrum, and it's not that easy to quantify. And it's not weakness to have say a blind spot or a weak spot or a certain thing that's difficult to tackle for you. I don't think that's general weakness. So I disagree with that part. Let me get to the next comments. I am glad says, do you know what slay means? And I think that was in reference to Soleil. So Soleil, slay is what they're telling you to do. And that's a term of encouragement. It has nothing to do with actual war or something like that. Thank you for the super chat. Benjamin says, if you don't worship Mo, you are disrespecting him. Yeah, that was in the context of us talking about how any mention of Muhammad that's not praising is disrespectful. Yeah. And thank you for the super chat, WG. Much appreciated. And Benjamin, same again. Thank you. He says, you are doing great work, Soleil. There's a lot of encouragement for you, Soleil, in the live chat here, and I'm glad people know about his channel. I will link it in the description after the video ends. So if you're watching this offline, it should already be in the description, hopefully. And thank you to Ad5. I have no idea what this currency is, but whatever it is, thank you. It is not meaningless. You're reaching more people than you know. Thank you, Aladdin and Soleil. I appreciate that. That's interesting. There's a bunch of misinformation here, but I'm not going to say anything about that. I like your calm, composed manner, Aladdin. When are you going to leave Lebanon and remove the mask, come to the UK? No shade intended, but the UK does not seem extremely ex-Muslim safe to me right now. But thank you for the encouragement. All right. There's a couple more comments. If I didn't answer now, I'll get to you after the next caller. You know what? Let's do it right now. No, that's not the one. Frankie says, how do you go about dealing with narcissistic traits in Muslim parents? My mom gave me the old Jannah is under the feet of mothers and demands I respect her on that premise despite her disrespecting me. That's a good question, and it's beyond my scope. But I will, take this with a grain of salt. I'm not a family therapist, and it sounds like these kind of situations should involve both parties in family therapy, not just one person, trying to do it for both of them, which is you trying to do it for both of them. But anyway, I would give the usual advice, which is look out for yourself, whatever it is that you need to do to survive. And of course, you're not doing it with bad intentions or whatever you need to do to survive. Try to appease her, but not to the extent that it starts to harm you. Just try to do whatever you need to do to thrive. Whatever that means is a balance for you. It's different in each situation. But it's sad that I see this theme reoccurring, the whole birr al-walidain idea that your parents, you should be good to them no matter what they do because they're your parents. They have the right. And I think that entitlement has faded in a lot of other communities, but Islam reinforces it. And I don't think it's true. I think even parents should earn the respect of their children. And by that, I don't mean that you should go around disrespecting your parents till they prove otherwise. But if they make mistakes, if they behave unfairly, they need to make up for them, not just rely on this goodwill of we are already your parents and we deserve your respect. So yeah, in your situation, I can't exactly say, just try to find the balance that helps you thrive is what I would say to that. Okay, so the next chat, Manhoor, don't worry about that. If you don't have much to say, I would still like you to call in and say whatever it is you have to say. So I'm starting with Brahim. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1 second. One more time, plugging my second channel. Check it out in the description. Brahim, adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey,
hello, Aladdin.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I am good, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, you're cutting in and out. Can you speak a little further away from the mic, maybe? No. Give me a second. I'll add you again.
Okay.
Try again.
Oh.
No, sorry, it keeps cutting out. I don't know if everyone else is hearing that. Yeah, I can't hear anything at all. Can you try to either get on a different internet connection or disconnect and connect again, and I'll add you after the next caller? try one more time?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's not working, unfortunately. I think it's your connection. Yeah, I'm sorry, Brahim, but if you're not able to join this time, just try to join in the next one, and I'll add you to earlier in the queue, so that I make sure that you get your time. Yes, sorry about that, but it is cutting out. All right, I am going to take the next caller then. Cosmic, I'm adding you in a couple seconds. But are you aware that your camera is on, and do you want it to remain on? Just give me a thumbs up before I add you. Yeah, I don't want to accidentally do that. So let me know. Oh, they don't mind. Okay. All right, Cosmic, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. I just can't see you. I feel like there's something wrong with StreamYard, but oh well.
Oh, that's too bad. But I can see you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, great job with everything you're doing.
Thank you.
I discovered you and Apostate Prophet around about the same time, probably about a year ago, when I was still in that phase of slightly believing in Islam. You know, that I think the most difficult thing to let go of was the fear of hell, essentially, that had been drilled into all of us from a very young age. And I think people sort of don't realize how traumatic that can be to get over. And they sort of toss that to the side when thinking about ex-Muslims that I've had to deal with in the last 3 or 4 years, just thinking that I'm going to go to hell for everything that I'm doing. And then eventually getting over it after watching your guys' videos and realizing how actually ridiculous the religion is. So thanks for that.
Of course.
But yeah, I made a few notes on what everyone had said earlier. I just thought I'd quickly talk about that, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So Kafir said that just a couple points that I saw. He mentioned that he was too shy to ask questions of imams when he's like in a speech or whatever they call it now. And yeah, I felt the same way. There were times when an imam would give like an hour-long speech, and I have this list of questions that I want to ask him, and I just don't have the courage to ask it because there are so many people there, and if people start to think that you're doubting when you're in a community like that, it's so dangerous. It's terrifying, really, growing up in a Muslim community, as I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah. And I know some people relate more than others. I mean, that's the thing. It's some people don't see the issue with that because in their community, it's not that big of a deal because most people around them aren't that practicing anyway. You know, like they can go and ask questions and get away with it, but they don't realize that for some people that's maybe a literal death sentence, maybe not quite, but it's ends your social life, and it's a big deal. Yeah.
Yes. I live in the UK, but in a very for the first 18 years of my life, I lived in a very tight-knit Muslim community. I very rarely left that community. It was always within that small area. I went to school in that area. It was only when I moved away that I started to see the actual world. But yeah, being in that community, it felt so special when you are a Muslim, because everyone is sort of there for you. But as soon as you start to question, that's when things go wrong. So for people that are stuck in communities like that, I think my only advice is, if you have to pretend, then pretend. If you have to pretend that you're reading Salah and doing everything you need to do, then just do that. just so that you can get by and eventually leave. Because coming out as an ex-Muslim can, if not, like you said, end your life, it can end your social life, which is so depressing. Like people commit suicide, and it's terrifying and really, really sad. But you'd be surprised how many people are pretending. How many devout Muslims are the opposite when you get down to it. I'm not sure if you know or have heard of Abu Layth.
Mufti Abu Layth?
Yes, Mufti Abu
Yeah.
Layth.
Yeah.
So his name is actually Ajmal. I can't remember his first name. His surname was Ajmal, and I know that because he was my
Is that
Arabic teacher.
public information?
Yes, it is public information.
Okay. All right.
As soon as you search Mufti Layth, it's the first thing that comes up, his real name. I wouldn't, you know, just give out rumors or private information that is inflammatory.
Okay.
But yeah, he was my Arabic teacher for 2 years in secondary school. And the things that he, like, I'm not going to go into details but the things that he was fired for, and then had problems with the law with, are not things you would associate with a Muslim in the slightest. And if anyone wants to look this up, they're free to do that and find out for themselves the details. But it was things like that that made you realize that, hey, these very devout people that I see at mosque, that stand in the front row, that make a big deal out of everything, are actually the opposite. And it made me furious, actually, that these were the same people that would judge me for the way I wanted to live, for my sexuality or for my beliefs. And the hypocrisy of it all, really. I guess most of that is more culture than religion. You know, like obviously nothing is there's nothing in, or to my knowledge, there's nothing in Islam that tells them to be hypocrites. They just are. And I guess that's because Islam is such a difficult religion to truly follow. An impossible one, even. But yeah, that's my take on that, at least. Sorry, I feel like I went on for quite a while there.
No, that's all right. I somewhat agree with you there. I mean, I think that the way that Islam tries to handle certain issues or certain things that, you know, could be slippery slopes, as they like to think, is it actually has the opposite effect. Like the extra repression causes people to crack, you know, it causes them to go the complete opposite way because there's no healthy outlet for certain things. There's this self-induced guilt, there's this fear, and it's weird how the brain works when you start mixing, you know, the kind of taboo aspect of things with needing to do them. When if something wasn't taboo, you know, some of those people won't be as attracted to them. I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but
no, I get the gist of what you're trying to say. Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult situation to live in. Growing up, I feel like I knew that I was gay when I was 13, and I felt from that moment that I was just destined for hell. And it was terrifying, having to keep everything bottled inside, growing up in a Muslim community, knowing that I would be shunned and repressed if I did come out. And when I turned 18, I did come out, and then I was excluded from both my family and the community. But that was incredibly freeing, actually. Terrifying to begin with, but freeing eventually when I got back on my feet and realized what the world actually is. But watching people like Muhammad Hijab on YouTube just reminds me of every single person I went to school with. It's just like lack of logic and just screaming and quoting scripture and coming up with your own ideas and being absolutely fine with the misogyny and the homophobia and everything that's just in Islam, the violence, being absolutely fine with it and just giving excuses for it. And I just find that so unacceptable in the 21st century.
What do you think should happen? So they're behaving that way. What do you think the response should be? Or in an ideal world, what would happen?
In an ideal world, criticizing people like Muhammad Hijab would not be considered Islamophobia. In an ideal world, I would be allowed to say something like, well, let's go by Apostate Prophet's one of his latest tweets when he tweeted about Muhammad potentially having a mental disorder. And he was then banned from Twitter for a day or two. I just thought that's like, no, in an ideal world, he should be allowed to say that. Because people aren't that bothered when you're saying that sort of thing about Jesus or Christianity or Judaism. It's only ever Islam that suddenly the West gets so sensitive about. And it's the West that coins Islamophobia and wants to make all Muslims victims, whereas yeah, a lot of Muslims are victims of their own religion. They're not victims of discrimination for the most. Well, there are instances of that. I won't deny that, but there's so much discrimination within Islam towards women, towards homosexuals, towards transsexuals. That's where the victims are. Not the Muhammad Hijabs who feel like they're being, that Islamophobia is targeting them. It's ridiculous actually seeing that podcast with Michaela Peterson and Ayan Hirsi Ali, I think.
Yeah.
That made me furious actually, because Ayan Hirsi Ali was just calm and quiet, and you could see at one point she got very emotional, and all she did, as Soleil pointed out, which is very poignant actually, all she did was talk about her experience. That's all ex-Muslims want to do. Talk about their story. That's all she did. And Muhammad Hijab is just like, just trying his best to roast her. And it's ridiculous.
But that's their language. That's all they know. I mean, there's precedent for it in Islam too. It's this idea that, I mean, at least in the Dawah scene, I was asking a friend, okay, I'm not going to mention who, but he's a YouTuber, not an ex-Muslim. And I was asking him, have you come across any Dawah person who's not full of themselves, who's not arrogant, who's not combative? And he said, no. And I've come across, if like Shabir Ali, for example, is not those things, but he is sly and, not really answering. I don't know if sly is the right word, but he's a bit slippery. But for the most part, they're only used to attack. Like they think that an ex-Muslim sharing their story or their opinions about the Prophet is an attack. So you should preemptively attack them. That's why they go for the jugular all the time. But eventually people are going to see the difference. I mean, can you imagine a live stream hosted by a Muslim where ex-Muslims get to come and join and talk? I don't see that happening very often.
Right. Whereas you do see Apostate Prophet, and I think you have as well made live streams where you talk to Muslims.
Yeah, very often. Yeah.
Very respectfully, as much as you can.
Yeah.
It's so night and day, but it does make me feel quite hopeless sometimes. If you go on Michaela Peterson's own channel, onto that podcast, the top 30 comments maybe are just supportive of Muhammad Hijab. Are just like, yeah, he's doing the right thing. Look, he put that woman in her place. Like,
they share a lot of the same bad core values, right? That and that's why they find support. I don't know about Michaela Peterson specifically. I'm not very familiar with her brand or what she does, but I've seen a lot of support from the alt-right and those kind of circles of Muslims, weirdly enough, because they have a lot of the same core ideas about women and about authority and what's good for the community and stuff. So it's an odd alliance to see. Like when Daniel Hakikachu was having some kind of debate or discussion with a
I
neo-Nazi.
can't talk to him. I can't even imagine talking to him.
Can you imagine that guy? Like, he's obnoxious with other Muslims. Can you imagine how he is with the next Muslim? But
He's actually a ridiculous person, and what a name as well. I mean, I don't want to be superficial and attack someone's name, but it definitely stands out.
what his name? Daniel Hakikachu?
Yeah, I don't understand.
It's memorable.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Sorry, I feel like I'm taking up far too much of your time.
No. I do have a question for you that someone had asked before you go. Lord's Need says, does Cosmic feel adrift since he has been excluded from his community? Do ex-Muslims have a group they can join and feel a part of? Liberal/progressive? Do you feel secure with them? That's a multi-part question, but
okay, I'll see if I can answer that part by part. Does Cosmic feel adrift since he has been excluded from his country? For the first year, yes. I'm almost 23 now, and I left my community when I was 18. I moved to a mostly white area, a mostly poor white area, made lots of friends, got a job, and started to see the world from different people's perspectives. I remember my first Christmas and being part of a family that wasn't mine, and these people caring so much about me in a way that my own parents never did. I was constantly told growing up that if I wasn't Muslim, I wouldn't be part of the family, that Islam meant more than familial bonds. There is, I can't remember if it's Quran or Hadith rather, that went along the lines of, if you meet your son in war and he's on the opposite side or something like that, then you can kill him. Or if and obviously if someone apostatizes, you can kill them. And that's the fact that religion means more to people than family does in Islam. That was something that really actually helped me break away from Islam. Do ex-Muslims have a group that they can join and feel a part of? I don't want to make a plug or anything, since I'm not really, I can't really speak for them. But there's an ex-Muslim subreddit on Reddit, which feels like a very safe online community, at least. You can rant on there, you can just post your own experiences, and it seems relatively safe, and there's lots of people that understand you. But personally, I'm at university now, and there's lots of very liberal people that I get on with very well, and I've made lots of friends who are not liberal at all, very conservative, but also very much understand me. And yeah, I feel very secure with them. I'm actually currently writing a play that's going to be performed in a theatre in the West Midlands, about the intersectionality between faith and sexuality and ethnicity, and that should be very interesting to see what the reaction is from the Muslim communities nearby, at least.
It's not advertised to the Muslim communities, right? But they will probably find their way into it.
Absolutely, because they'll find their way into everything here. I don't know how versed you are with UK news and stuff, but as soon as sexual education was added into curriculums in schools, as soon as LGBT history and stuff was integrated into curriculums, there were protests outside of schools every single day with thousands of Muslim parents saying that they didn't want their children to learn that two men can get married, that two women can have children, can raise children. And I felt like that's ridiculous. So there will be Muslims that find out, and there will be Muslims that are very angry about it. But that's the idea. The idea is to ask those questions, and I feel like that's the only way that people outside of these circles, outside of the Muslim and ex-Muslim circles, will make their own opinions up. That's what matters, I think. I feel like I'm never going to sway a devout Muslim. And I feel like ex-Muslims already have made their mind up, but it's the people outside of those circles whose opinions matter, because currently they're very swayed towards Muslims, I think. That's just my opinion, of course.
Well, I don't want us to think about it as they're swayed towards Muslims per se, and we want them more swayed towards us.
Right? No, yeah.
Yeah,
From my
it's-
experience, at least, that's all I'm talking from.
No, I mean they are at the moment, but I want them to be more swayed towards personal freedom and upholding human rights.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
And if that means that will sway them away from Muslims, then that's your answer, right? Like it's not about specifically moving their sympathy away from Muslims.
It's less about the ends and more about the means. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I've probably phrased it wrong.
No, yeah, and I just want to clarify how I think about it, because people might hear that and think, so you want people to sympathize or empathize with Muslims less. No, I want them to empathize or sympathize with human rights and personal freedom, upholding them more. And if that happens to offend Muslims or step on their toes, that is not the fault, or that's not the goal behind this movement, right? It just goes to show that the Muslims were aligned with something that is not very good, like, breaching personal freedom and not upholding human rights. So that's what I'm trying to say here. It's not an adversarial position, but if it happens to support one side more than the other, then that's for reasons outside of our control.
You are absolutely right. That being said, though, if these outside circles did realize a lot of the things that were wrong with Islam, the misogyny and homophobia in Muslim countries that isn't reported about in Western news at all. I mean,
and even in Western countries, like the things that go on in these circles,
especially in Western countries.
Yeah.
When I was explaining to my partner's brother about female genital mutilation, about things that my mom would go through personally, he was just absolutely shook. He had no idea. He was told in school that Islam is a religion of peace. In religious education, he was always told, oh, so Muslims greet each other by saying Assalamu alaikum, which just means peace be upon you. That's the core of their religion. Islam means obedience or whatever. And it's just such a skewed point of view that is being taught in curriculums and stuff. And people need to really know the truth. And then, like you said, make their own minds up. That's what matters.
Yeah, I hope that people someday see the things that Muslims aren't even hiding, like that are plainly in the books, right? Like I want people to read the Quran themselves, because then I wouldn't need to do anything if people actually read the Quran, including Muslims reading the Quran. That's all I'm doing is pointing out things from the Quran and Hadith. So I hope eventually that gets more Muslims reading the Quran, and that's my goal here, I suppose. I'm a da'wah person in disguise, right?
Yeah, sorry, I just saw a comment that says, I don't think LGBTQ stuff should be taught in schools. It's completely unnecessary. There's more important things to teach. We'll have to agree to disagree. I don't expect everyone to be taught about like Stonewall and LGBTQ history, etc., etc. That's up to them to decide if they want to learn. But children need to be taught that it's okay when someone has two fathers. It's okay when someone has two mothers or a single gay father. Because when children aren't taught that, that's when homophobia and discrimination occurs. I'm sorry, this is a bit out of the scope of the ex-Muslim chat, but I just
I mean it's still relevant. I think similarly. I think there's this narrative that oh, the LGBT is shoved down people's throats, but the truth is, you talk about it and you'll find those people shoving their opinions down your throat immediately. And by telling children, you're not indoctrinating children into being gay. You're just telling them, hey, gay people exist and it's okay because they too can adopt, they too can live a regular life. The only difference is who they're attracted to and who they love and have a partnership with. But that seems like an attack to someone who grew up. They say most of us weren't taught any of that and we're perfectly fine. Well, it sounds like you're straight. Like that's why you're perfectly fine. It's such a weird logic about it that, hey, I wasn't harmed by anything, therefore we shouldn't change anything at all. No, it's you should listen to the people who are benefiting by gaining their rights this way, which is being viewed as part of the normal community. So yeah, I disagree with the commenter.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I feel very self-conscious and selfish. I've taken up far too much of your time.
No, that's all right.
So I'm going to say a very hasty goodbye and let the next caller come on. And again, thank you very much for everything that you're doing and for having me on.
Of course, I'm glad to have you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Thank you, Cosmic, for joining. I'll read a few comments, then I'll get to the next caller. So, Benjamin, thanks again for the super chat. We need more people to read the Quran. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a da'wah person in disguise, and I'm trying to get people to read the Quran. So there you go. Mission accomplished. Osiris says LGBTQ are part of the community. Yeah, and hopefully, here's the thing. There is a distinction right now. This is why there's a need for the LGBTQ community or the ex-Muslim community, or in some places, for example, the Black community. The reason those communities are necessary at the time is because those people are excluded or mistreated in other communities, therefore they have to find their own. But the ideal is that eventually there won't be a need for these specific communities, because then you can focus on having communities based around something else when the LGBT are treated as part of the regular, everyday communities. So when people say, then how come they have to label it? How come they have to make it a thing? Because if they don't find representation and community together, it's harder to fit with other groups. But the goal is that they will fit with every group as any other straight person and so on. Okay, a few comments before I get to the next caller, which will be Stargirl. So, hell is what made me leave religion. I couldn't imagine being happy in a paradise while others are in constant pain. Starry Spring, I agree. It was one of the things that really got me questioning, was thinking, there's a verse, I can't remember the surah or the number, but it was على الأرائك ينظرون. On the couches they look or watch, and the context of it was disbelievers used to laugh at the believers in this life. So in the afterlife, believers are going to be sitting on a couch, raised couches, and watching them in heaven and hell. The believers are in heaven on a couch watching in hell. And I'm thinking, how horrifying is that? I mean, and here's the thing. At the time, I was thinking of insert enemy country here, because I was indoctrinated into thinking that certain countries are awful in general. And I was thinking, would I even want to see my worst enemy burning and I would laugh? It doesn't make any sense, let alone a disbeliever who's not a horrible human being. They're just not a believer. So that really got me questioning as well. Okay, interesting comment. Liko says, what would one have to do to get a date with you? Asking for a friend. What Ad5 is saying is, oh my, please no simping. Yeah, so I suppose no comment. Okay, we did answer that one. There's a lot of hate about Muhammad Hijab. I'm not going to defend the guy. He is very unlikable. P, one of the members of the channel, says Imam Tawhidi. I'm not very familiar with him, but I think this was a suggestion in the context of a Dawah person who's not very arrogant and so on. So yes, I will check him out, Imam Tawhidi. And I'm so sorry, Cosmic, for the treatment you faced. It's worse for queer Muslims because we have to come out twice on queerness and religion Take care of yourself, my friend. You deserve better. I believe you mean queer ex-Muslims, but either way, thank you for commenting. And yeah, let me get back to the callers then. So the next caller is Stargirl. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Stargirl.
Hello.
How's it going? Hi.
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for asking.
I'm really glad that you're still doing these streams. I think it's so important. Yeah, so thank you.
Of course.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about hijab. It's something that it's been on my mind lately a lot. I wore hijab for a good chunk of my life, more than half of it. And it's still, I didn't realize had like such a profound effect on me in terms of like how I perceive my own body, and still kind of feeling, even though I don't believe in Islam, still feeling ashamed for, I guess, dressing more revealing, even, and revealing in terms like in Islamic terms, like a t-shirt and like some shorts, which is pretty normal to wear in a summer heat. But it's really odd, and I think we don't talk about this enough, especially it's not a conversation I expect to happen in the Muslim community, but it's so important to acknowledge that when you teach a young woman or a young girl that there's something immoral about them showing any sort of skin above their above their wrists or above their ankles, like that leaves lifelong damage. And when I'm on TikTok or just social media in general, and I see Muslim women who aren't hijabis just talk about kind of the guilt they feel and say, you know, I'm just not ready yet and things like that, it makes me feel really bad, because I know exactly how they feel, and kind of feeling ashamed for just being a regular person, for dressing normally, for not, you know, completely covering yourself. And I just wish we spoke more about it, as well as like, I honestly feel like if you are a child, if you're like 9 or 10 and your parents are coercing you to wear hijab, or even if they just tell you you should start wearing hijab and you do, to me that falls under a category of forced hijab, because I could convince a 9-year-old or 10-year-old to do anything pretty much. And
Like get married, among other things.
yeah, you know, terrible things. And you don't allow your child to have autonomy over their body at a young age. It can really damage them in the long run. So yeah, I'm just thinking about hijab lately, and I feel like the psychological effects that it has on people, had on me at least. um I genuinely feel bad when I see, you know, women in abayas and niqabs in like the blazing sun, knowing how uncomfortable that is. And it's just upsetting, something to see. But I saw a comment actually that you just mentioned earlier that kind of struck well, it reminded me of like an experience I had growing up, and thinking about like hell, and how immoral like the idea of hell is, at least in my opinion. Just growing up in a really diverse community of all different faiths and beliefs and races, just to think that like my friends that I grew up with are bound to burn for eternity because they happen to be born in a different family with different views, that never sat right with me. I think that was like kind of what led me to leave Islam eventually. But there's just a lot of hatred in Islam, and othering in Islam, and almost superiority complex that some Muslims have, that like, well, we deserve to be in heaven and they deserve to be in hell because they didn't believe, and they were shown the truth and they refused it. But like, truly, do you think that anyone deserves to burn in hell for eternity? Like, I don't know, maybe the worst of us, like maybe Hitler or something, but I don't know if I can think of any person that I know that deserves to burn in hell for eternity. So that was definitely one thing that really kind of stuck out for me. But
You know something you said about the sorry to interrupt, but the
oh, no worries.
what you said about the superiority and inferiority complex and so on. First thing the apologist thought that came to my mind was, but that's Muslims, not Islam. And but then you elaborated, you said, well, some people deserve to be in heaven, some people deserve to be in hell. I think they skirt this idea that it's a superiority complex by saying, well, we don't make the rules and we don't say who deserves to go to hell, but Allah
Right.
says. So that's how they avoid this idea that they have a superiority complex, because it's the rules are, beyond all of us, and they didn't set them, and they're not the one enforcing them. Your everyday Muslim is not enforcing who's better than who. They're just saying Allah thinks a disbeliever deserves hell. It's not me, it's Allah saying it. So it's their way of washing their hands from this. But Islam is extremely, it's about superiority, or they would say, everyone is equal in the eyes of Allah. All the believers are equal in the eyes of Allah, or something like that. It's not about race and all that stuff. But they can never really answer that question of why does someone deserve eternal hell, except by saying because they're denying God on purpose and they're choosing it. So yeah.
Right. It's honestly ridiculous, and I just sometimes I have friends, a lot of friends who are Muslim, and a lot of them don't really know that I'm ex-Muslim. It's not something I necessarily hide, but it's if they were to ask, I would tell them, but they don't really, they kind of assume, I guess because of my ethnic background and our community. But it's like these people are super smart. A lot of these people are getting like some very impressive degrees. And the fact that they can't see past a lot of the like blatant inconsistencies, or just the ridiculousness behind like believing a lot of the things that they believe, and like how would they feel if a Christian were to say those things, or a Jewish person were to say those things and justify those beliefs? I don't think they would really be, understanding of that at all. And, to your point of like them constantly saying, well, it's not me saying, it's Allah. Well, you're peddling these beliefs, right? Like you're encouraging these beliefs. If any Muslim people love recruiting people to Islam, and like, you know, getting people, anyone who has like a slight interest in Islam, just like trying to get them to take their, shahada and like convert. But it really boggles my mind sometimes. And I pray, like I pray, but I don't believe in God. But like my prayer is just hoping, I guess, that these people kind of get some sense and analyze their beliefs and at least be a little bit more progressive. I don't have the issue with, progressive Muslims and people who tailor Islam to be more, I guess, suitable for this day and age. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard not to be upset with people who peddle these beliefs, and um, just to ignore the blatant destruction that it causes. I mean, I'm lucky enough to like grow up in a Western country, so even though honor killings is something that still happens here, leaving Islam is nowhere near as dangerous as if I were to be born in my country of origin or other countries around the world. And I feel like a lot of Muslims turn a blind eye to how difficult it must be to not have those beliefs, or not only that, but like have to follow Islam to the T. That's something that is more of a choice that we have here. It's just really sad, because a lot of the things that we debate about, like, or we might like discuss about, um, and the problems we might have with Islam or Sharia, like there are lots of people, millions of people who have no choice but to follow these rules and die behind these rules. And we have to do something about that. I feel a responsibility to call it out and use the privilege I have here to like freely renounce Islam and really like talk about how nothing about this is perfect, like they love to claim. Nothing about this is perfect. Nothing about Muhammad's life was perfect, or his moral compass at all. And I just wish that's something that we can have a more open dialogue, which I'm really grateful for your channel for that, because I do feel like you're bridging that. gap between ex-Muslims and Muslims and trying to open that conversation more, because I do think it'll be a joint effort. But yeah, it's really insane, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to do that, but
Yeah,
my main focus, obviously, like I'm not going to do that by compromising the ability to talk about the topic, because some people think that it's hard to build bridges if I'm going to make other videos where I make jokes about, verses in the Quran. I think it is possible to still build bridges. I just can't, appease them and just talk about how things are from their point of view. But it is happening. I see it happening. Um, One thing that crossed my mind is earlier you said you don't understand how someone can be very educated or very smart, and I don't remember your words exactly, but something along those lines, with a degree, and not see how a Christian posing the same points wouldn't make sense or be outrageous. Um,
right,
I think it's beyond intelligence. I don't know if emotional intelligence is the term, or there's a lot more to it than someone being empathetic. But empathy is one of those things that, if you're able to empathize, that means that you think about things from the other person's point of view, or at least
right,
I feel like, at least in my mind, that's how it works. Like if I see someone in a bad situation, I think, or that's the most, breaking it down to stages way of thinking about it is, if I were in their shoes, that would be a lot of suffering for me. I want to prevent that for them, just as if I was there and I'd want to prevent it for me. Um,
exactly. Yeah,
so if someone can't think that way, they're not going to think, if the Christian said the same justification that I'm giving, I wouldn't like it. It's that putting yourself in other shoes that's the source of empathy, and of trying to, as objectively as possible, assess the matter at hand, from the other point of view. And I feel like if someone has that mentality, and there are Muslims who have that mentality, they end up having this kind of dialogue, and more often than not, they end up either leaving religion or holding on to a version of it that's very different from the version that's the most problematic or closest to the sources, I would think. Um,
right,
so I don't know. I don't know if it's ever possible to have some kind of symbiotic, maybe not symbiotic, but some kind of coexistence with, believers who go by the book, if the ones who do have empathy and ability to see it from the other point of view end up leaving or adopting a halfway kind of, understanding of it. I don't know.
right.
What do you think of that?
I mean, as soon as you started talking, I started to think about this woman. I wish I remembered her name. But she is a psychologist, and she was also a victim of a cult. And she explains pretty well how you do not have to be an idiot or uneducated to, be susceptible to joining a cult. Not that Islam is a cult. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but it's definitely arguable. But
I
anyways,
would, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, I and it's interesting, like, um, kind of how it just takes over people's mind, and they're just unable to see past it. So I don't know. I think the closest thing to some sort of um, understanding that could be had would be with progressive Muslims. But even then, like you mentioned, a lot of the beliefs that they hold have strayed so far away of, like, Sunni Islam, or just the Islam that we grew up learning. And it's at that point, what are we even really talking about? Like, what are we even really, like, are we really doing anything productive if you're able to just kind of morph your beliefs into something else? I don't have anything against progressive Muslims. I think that it's great that they're, adjusting their beliefs, but, like, in terms of, like, having real conversations about Islam, I don't know if that's possible if you've watered it down so much and kind of morphed it into something you're comfortable with. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's possible anytime soon, but it's become apparent that, Muslims have are aware of the ex-Muslim community. I mean, like 5 years ago, I had no idea what an ex-Muslim was. And now the ex-Muslim community is a lot more visible. And I feel like that something like that is just what's, aiding in the progress. I just worry a lot about Muslims who suffer in Muslim majority countries, in countries run by Sharia law. And I feel like the only way of being able to tackle that would be with working with other Muslims. But again, I don't know how we're ever going to reach that point. I wouldn't bet on it, but I do think that your channel is definitely bridging the gap. I don't. I mean, I know people might find your content disrespectful. I feel like you're kind of one of the most mild ex-Muslim creators. I think you really try to be as respectful as possible. So I don't know. I mean, we just have to be honest at a certain point. And also, people have to acknowledge that your religion doesn't deserve respect on the basis of just being your religion. I don't have to respect Islam. I don't have to respect your beliefs if they're causing this much harm, if there's such clear issues with it. And that's not something that a lot of Muslims can accept the same way that a lot of Christians are. Oh,
Sorry.
hey,
Sorry,
no
he
worries.
learned how to do that now. Oh
This
God.
is
Okay.
so adorable.
All right. He's like,
But
I've
yeah,
given you enough time. Sorry.
no worries, no worries. Yeah, I was just gonna say I wish that Muslims were able, or we were able to joke, and this is kind of what along the lines of what Cosmic was saying, but we should be able to joke and critique Islam the same way people critique Christianity all the time. People make a lot of jokes about Christianity, and it's not inherently Islamophobic. It's not aiding into any oppression against Muslims. And honestly, I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know, like I would just class Islamophobia as like kind of just racism in my opinion, because a lot of the people who experience Islamophobia are like what I guess like a racist white person would just constitute as a Muslim, whether that be like a brown person or a Sikh person who, they have no idea, like Sikh people, I guess, or anyone with a turban, they would just look at them as Muslim. But like if a white guy were to just be walking around and he happened to be Muslim, he wouldn't, I guess, be susceptible, or even like a black person wouldn't be as susceptible to Islam or Islamophobia because that's not assumed of them to be Muslim. So honestly, I've also been like critiquing like what even is Islamophobia. I definitely experienced it when I wore hijab, so I guess it's possible, that like people are. I do believe people are genuinely discriminated against for being Muslim, but there's a huge difference between that kind of bias and discrimination and just genuine critique of Islam and the scripture and the Quran, the Hadith. It's not aiding in the further marginalization of the Muslim community. So I just really hope that the Muslim community can get over themselves a little bit and understand that your religion isn't deserved respect, and we're allowed to make jokes. I mean, we suffered through it for X amount of years, so I'm gonna joke about it. I'm gonna say that you look like a ninja in your niqab because you kind of do, and I really don't
Well,
think that's
see,
Islamophobic.
that's not the kind of joke I would make. I mean, that's still not the kind of joke that I would make, believe it or not.
Right.
Because here's why I wouldn't make that joke, and I don't mean to lecture you. I just want to give
Yeah, no
my
worries.
thoughts on that. It's because I mean, Ninja Mommy does call herself Ninja Mommy, so there's that. But like they do own it sometimes. But for me, like there's another joke that's I'm not implying that you said that, but a joke like, oh, they look like a tent or a trash bag, like she's wearing a trash bag or something. And I just feel like it's a lot of these women aren't really choosing to be wearing that, or they're choosing it on the surface because you understand all the reasons why someone would wear a hijab or a niqab, and
Right.
even though they're unhappy. So it doesn't feel like it's funny and productive at the same time. Um,
Right.
and it's very easy to perceive as hateful, and it might actually be used in a hateful way. But there's a lot of jokes that I feel like even if we're not Like, even if we didn't suffer for an X amount of years, it's okay to make a joke about something, especially when it is problematic. Like, just because someone holds it to be holy and untouchable doesn't mean that it is. So everything you said about
Absolutely.
Islamophobia, I pretty much agree. I would even go one step further, and I would think if people are starting to annoy Muslims or presume things about them based on what's in Islam, that is a problem that I wish wouldn't happen, but I feel like that should get Muslims thinking, why are why am I being questioned about polygamy, for example? And I never advocate for people to just go a Muslim and to a Muslim and annoy them, and be like, hey, explain, why did your prophet do this? But if
Right,
people are
right.
doing that, like, you're an ambassador for your religion, you should start thinking about these legitimate questions. Like, is it wrong to assume that someone believes in something that is part of their religion? Do you,
No, yeah, that's fair.
I
But
I
I
still like
do,
preach not doing that. I still preach trying to understand each person, because nobody really truly understands their religion, or very few people actually look into it. But I think that on principle, like, it's not that unexpected that people will ask Muslims about horrible things in Islam or presume that they believe in them, you know?
well, yeah, I experienced that. I experienced that, like, especially as a hijabi. Definitely, people would ask me some like pretty insane questions about Islam, and some of the times that's like how I would find out about like some of these hadiths. And yeah, like I do agree. I understand like a lot of like, well, I wouldn't say a lot of jokes made about Islam, but like I guess jokes in the more in the way that I made them aren't necessarily productive. But like also, if you're like a grown woman who's like, advocating for niqab and advocating for, excessive modesty, like I'm not only gonna like make fun of you, but like I'm gonna critique you in the sense that like there's so many young Muslim women who are going to be so distorted in the way that they view what it means to be respected as a woman, and that
Mhm.
the them being this modest is what should garner them respect, when women should be respected, period, no matter how much clothes they're wearing. But yeah, definitely not productive, definitely not a productive joke. But um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's come to a point where nothing you can say, like Islam is almost untouchable, not because of Muslims, but because of like, liberals who will kind of ride behind us, behind Muslims, and they don't want to be lumped in with like Islamophobic white supremacists, and they don't want to be looked at as like unprogressive. But at the same time, you can't really encourage or support something that is so clearly conflicting with like modern day interpretations of feminism, and the idea, and the patriarchy. I mean, Islam is a very patriarchal religion. But yeah, it's definitely a slippery slope when it comes to like jokes about Islam.
You know what? I
Definitely
have
so.
no problem with those people that you mentioned supporting Islam or defending it, as long as they actually look into it. So I don't
Right,
want someone to just, take a surface level answer of Prophet Muhammad was the first feminist and then put that on a banner and then, go with it. I want them
right.
to cite why. I want them to understand how this is compatible with their other causes that they support and so on. And if they do that, they end up ditching it, but they don't do their due diligence. So that's what we're here for, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very true. I mean, I never understood that. Like, women had no rights before Islam. Like, how did Khadija have such a successful business then? Like, it's very contradictory. But when you look into it, it's really difficult to deny. Like, you have to pretty much become one of these dawa YouTubers to like do the mental gymnastics to make it make sense. But anyone who genuinely looks into Islam, I don't think they'll be able to excuse a lot of the things that you'll read, a lot of the ayahs in the Quran, and a lot, especially the Hadith. And I understand why there's like the whole like Quranist movement, because I mean those there's no shying away from like how brutal those hadiths are, or like justifying them, especially how clear they are. Um, But yeah, I mean, I
Mm.
do have a problem with a lot of those like liberals, but I feel like yes, if they are to do their due diligence, they probably wouldn't have those beliefs anymore.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me, share my little piece,
Of
and
course.
I really appreciate this and the space that you have created for ex-Muslims. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be able to do that, and thank you for joining.
Of course. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sorry, didn't mean to add you yet. So yeah, thank you for joining. And there was an appearance by my cat. Man, I've been away for so long, I forgot what his screen name is. Apu. That's Apu. Um, let me read a few comments, and then I'll get to the next caller, which is Dan. I think that's what the name is supposed to be. Okay, so HM is saying, I don't know if all ex-Muslims feel like this, but when you look at Islam through an apostate view, don't you think to yourself, how did I blindly follow this cult when there was so many holes? Uh, I'll get back to that in a second, but I want to comment on calling Islam a cult. I said earlier, yes, I would argue that it is. And I want to make it clear that's not a derogatory term. It's an accurate one, in my opinion. And as Starry Spring is saying, Islam is 100% a cult. I've been studying cults for such a long time. If anyone wants to look into cults, look at the Bite model and compare it to the religion. So that's what I mean. It's not meant in a derogatory way. It's meant in a descriptive way, which is it fits the model of a cult. And that applies to a lot of other religions. So let's get back to this point. Yeah, I've had those thoughts, and it was a period of shock of how come I didn't see this before. And for some people that turns into self blame, maybe like, have I not been intelligent this whole time? Like, am I gullible and all this stuff? Don't focus on blaming yourself. Try to understand how easy it was to get into it and how easy it was to remain in it. It's not your fault, really. And once you see it, it's clear as day. But before you do, it's not that easy either. This is a very funny comment from Marco. If Aladdin has children, I hope he doesn't force them to wear a mask. I just tell them that it's more hygienic and it's more modest to wear a mask. It's more respectful, and they can make their own choices. If they don't want to wear a mask, I will punish them severely, but it's their choice. I'm joking, of course. And yes, Sky Raven, I feel similarly, except not exactly. I feel bad for shaming other women/girls for not wearing the proper hijab or not wearing it at all when I was younger. I believe this is a female. I had that sentiment in my mind. I never went around saying, hey, you wear the hijab better. But I had that mentality in my head, like, just either wear it properly or don't wear it at all. And sometimes I do have that thought in my head, but I'm like, it's none of my business. And back then it was more like almost a concern, like, you're not doing it right. Allah is still going to punish you. But yeah, I'm sorry, Raven, that you used to say that. But hey, it was coming from a good place, I hope. But you know better now, and we live and we learn. Benjamin, thank you for the super chat. Says, you were born in the wrong religion? ? Enjoy Jahannam. That's practically how it works. I mean, practically, I can't speak. Practically how it works. Statistically, most likely people who remain in Islam and have a chance at heaven are already born Muslim. By the way, we've got these awesome emojis, I suppose, that I had commissioned from one of my followers, and I've got a bunch more that I can't release up until I get enough. Oh no, they're not showing this way. Never mind. They're in the live chat right now if you check them out. They're pretty cool designs that are themed around the channel. Unfortunately, they don't show when I highlight them that way, but you can use them and more if you join the channel, like as a member. So I just wanted to throw that out there. A couple more comments, and then I'll get to the next caller. Aladdin blushes under his mask every time he receives a compliment. No, that's hearsay, Your Honor. That did not happen. Never Skrata says, Stargirl is so well spoken, I feel like she speaks a lot better and is far more concise than I, Cosmic, was. Don't bring yourself down. You sounded very eloquent and concise. Don't worry about that. But yes, Stargirl is also well spoken. Sorry, my throat is starting to go. Okay, now we'll get to the next caller. I am taking, I believe it was Dan. Dan, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Hi, I'm good. What about you?
I am good, thank you.
Yeah, so this is my first time being on the stage, sharing my story with people.
Welcome.
I'm coming from a Hanafi background. I was raised by a...
1 second, Dan. Can you step a bit away from the microphone? It's clipping.
Okay. How about
A
that?
little bit. This is better, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was raised by my grandparents.
Sorry, it's back again. Yeah, can you step a little further away? Yeah. Or a different microphone if you have it.
Just
now.
Give it another try.
Is it still? Okay, hello.
No, it's still cutting. Give me a sec. Try again.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, your voice has changed.
Yeah, because I don't know, like this background noise is there, but when I use my voice changer, it's kind of, I think, using some sort of like
Sorry,
suppressor.
it's still clipping very, very hard, unfortunately. Like it's like
I'm sorry.
clips when it's high volume. Can you try moving away further even, and I'll compensate for that volume?
Okay, how about now?
No, it's still causing issues. Yeah, sorry, it's really hard to listen to. Can you join with another microphone if possible, and I'll add you next in queue?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll talk to you in a bit. All right, bye. Yeah, sorry about that, Dan. Next is Miya. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Miya. How's it going?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right. So I actually didn't prepare anything for this, but since I saw that you were having like a live going on, I thought I'd share my experience. And this is mainly for me because I didn't really share this with anyone before. So it's more of like my thoughts, right? And how I posted it. I did write in the chat that I just came to terms with it in March, which is very recent.
Mhm.
And I will say that it was a process. I think around middle school, I started having my first doubt, which was because of the queer community. At that time, I did know that queer people existed. I just always thought it was a choice. And then when I started experiencing that myself, I was very mad. I was like, well, that's weird. I always thought it was a choice. I didn't choose this. So that was like my first doubt. Keep in mind that, yes, it was a doubt, but it never occurred to me that Islam might be wrong. I was like, there is something that I'm missing, but it's not Islam that Islam is wrong, you know?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, it's a confusing, like, just it's confusion. It's like, okay, I know the answer, but how do I get there?
Yeah.
Like, what am I
So,
missing? Yeah.
basically, I denied it for a while, and then I came to terms with it, but I kind of adapted a liberal, more Muslim liberal kind of view, where I was like, well, yes, it's not a choice, but I'm not gonna act on it, and I can live with that, right?
Mhm.
And then that was my first thing. I do want to make it clear that I did not leave Islam because of this. I lived with it completely fine, till like a certain point later where I started to question the morality within Islam as a whole, like the way women are treated, apostates, and all that stuff. Um, Obviously, again, back to the LGBTQ stuff, like taking a more liberal kind of view about homosexuality was reinterpreting the story of Lot. Um, that did not make sense to me at all. Yani, if God wanted to talk about, rapists, he could have said that, right? Why was it so hard to read into it? So I wanted to agree with liberal views, but I found it like it didn't say that. Like they're changing everything that's being said. And I had like a dilemma where I thought that I was really wrong, and I should be like a model Muslim, especially with knowing my background. Both of my parents are very religious, not only because they wanted to be religious, but it's a part of their job, right? My father is an imam, and my mother taught religious studies and all of that sort of thing. So I was expected to be that kind of person. And then I was pretty much okay with it. But around 2020, when the pandemic hit, I started like becoming really religious, and I think it was because of fear, new pandemic and all that thing. So I started praying and doing everything really nice and well, and I felt really comfortable in it. But then I came around the hadith that basically said that women or angels are going to curse women if they don't agree to sexual intercourse with their husbands. And I was like, at the surface of it, it did sound like a very harsh hadith. So I went into reading the tafsir for it, and the tafsir did not make any sense. And here I started to doubt the mufassirin themselves, like the people that interpreted hadith and the Quranic verses. I thought that they had a lot of bias going on. So I was like, I'm going to interpret it at face value. And yeah, every time religion was mentioned, I just felt very bad. I didn't want to talk about it. Though at the time I did identify as a Muslim, I knew that I had a lot of doubts, and I knew that if I started to talk about it, or think about it, I will apostate, or disbelieve.
Well, can I ask you one thing? If someone at the time had asked you, someone outside of the Muslim ex-Muslim community, just a person asking you, are you a Muslim? What would you answer that with?
So it depends if it's like online or offline. Because offline, I'm wearing the hijab. It's clear that I'm a Muslim. It's like it's a symbol. I'm representing it, right? Mm-hmm. But if it was online, I said Muslim, but I remember hesitating to tell them, because I was like, am I a Muslim? I'm not sure. Like, I didn't know where I standed on that. So yeah, I think a year after that, not a year, maybe a couple of months after the pandemic hit, and even after like my really religious phase, I knew in my heart that whenever I was praying, I knew that there was not a God. I just couldn't believe that there was a God, there was eternal hell, and all that sort of thing. But I always blamed myself. That God has put, and I know I'm wrong, but God is gonna punish me. I couldn't believe it. Like, you can't believe. You can't choose to believe. It just happens to you. You can strengthen your what is it called? Faith, or weaken it by knowing certain things. Like, a big part of it was I thought that the Quran was scientifically accurate, hence I was wrong. Because morality to me was flawed. But science was very much in touch with the Quran, apparently. This is the Islamic agenda, obviously. So here's where I was like, I don't believe, and I really tried to believe, but I can't. But I know that I'm wrong. And then I saw videos circling around of people that left churches, like the Catholic Church, the Mormon Church, and a lot of the thing that they were saying meant, like, I connected to that, though it was a different religion. And I realized that maybe I'm not so wrong after all. Maybe it's not my fault for thinking like that. Especially after hearing slavery, I was like, this is inexcusable. I cannot excuse this no matter what. And that was basically it. I came to terms with it, though I obviously have a lot of shame because it's quite recent. But I cannot believe in Islam personally.
Well, I can hear in your voice the frustration that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you don't have a chance to talk about this often, do you?
Yeah. So I have, like, my closest person to me is my sibling, and I know if I told them that, they will definitely accept me. But I'm scared of them doubting it, because it changes your perspective. It kind of makes you feel like life is hopeless. That was my thought process.
Well, you're justified in thinking that it's almost like you don't want to, like, how do I phrase this? If someone is happy in their belief and it's not harming them or anyone else, I almost don't want to touch their mind. I'm like, you know what? You stay in your little bubble. Like, especially if it's someone you care about, you're like, I don't want them to go through what I've went through. And
Yeah.
so like all the people who are vaguely Muslim, or don't do anything in Islam that harms them or others, or don't live with a guilt while being in Islam, all that stuff, I don't care for them. They can continue doing their thing. It's people who are harming themselves or others that I feel like, okay, if you go through this turmoil, it's going to be for your own benefit, probably. And yeah, so I see why,
Yeah.
if it's someone that you care about and you see that they're not really in harm or anything, you don't want to subject them to that.
Mhm.
And it's wise. Like, you don't want to complicate things in the family. I don't know what their ages are, but I feel like eventually you might be surprised. Like, I've seen situations where turns out the siblings did have the similar doubts and questions, but they just
Yeah. Like my sibling did tell me once that they had doubts, but they always believed that there was a creator. And to me, I didn't say it, but to me that was like, well, believing a creator doesn't necessarily mean that that creator that you're believing in is the right one. Um, I do sound like I'm like frustrated. It's just that I'm nervous. I had a lot of time to talk about it with myself. I talk about it with myself to make myself feel better. Um, and I know that there are people that I know, say my friends or family, when they hear about this, they're gonna accept me. But then again, they're gonna ask me why. And if I get into the why, it might get them to doubt themselves.
You know what about that? Don't be so confident about that, because I thought the same thing. And those people in my life, it didn't turn out. Some of them were either like, "Oh yeah, this is too complicated for me. You know what? You sound like you've done your research. I'm just gonna keep doing my thing. You keep doing yours." And some other people, it was sad to see how they doubled down. I thought this would shake their, view of the
It
world.
shaped
And
mine. It shaped me.
yeah,
Like,
you'd be
yeah.
surprised how many people that you like, intelligent people and everything. It would make you sad to realize what happens in their mind once they're faced with this information. So for me, those people, I'd rather not, like, aside from the fact that maybe it'll cause friction and all that. Sometimes it's disappointing finding out how they think about it. Like, you would
Yeah.
expect them to be shaken by it, but they're not, and you're thinking, wait a second, so we don't think alike in any way. So it's just be careful
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
I do like, because this came so suddenly. I didn't have a time to organize my thoughts. I do a plan in the future to write everything down, and because these feelings I always like shunned them, it's hard to get back into feeling them again. I want to read the Quran again from the perspective of a person that doesn't believe again. Um, just to understand exactly what I'm going against, right? um Also, like, the topic of women was always like really hard for me. Again, I told you that I adopted like Islamic liberal views. So whenever I went in a discussion with a person that had more like of a conservative kind of view, I always use the typical liberal arguments. And I always thought it did bug me all the time whenever they brought like verses or hadiths to support their claims. In these hadiths saying that women are gained protection by men, or women don't have to work, women have to stay at home. And it sounds profound on the surface of it. I guess if you're a believer, you think, oh, they want us to be protected from this cruel world. But it always bugged me the wrong way. And when I started to think about it, I was like, this is infantilization. This just makes you feel like you're a person that doesn't have the same mental capacity as a man. Not the same intelligence, according to some hadiths. So yeah,
And
that
it's
was
rather than like focusing on their justification for why the woman doesn't get as much inheritance, it's because the man is supposed to provide for the family and all that stuff. Why not
yeah.
focus on making a system where both can provide, not equally, because the woman still has to suffer more in childbirth, for example, but
Hmm.
find a system that makes it so that they're both able to do what they want. Or a woman who doesn't want children or isn't married or whatever, they're focusing on this one model of a woman who's a mother, right, and a wife.
Hmm.
That's why al jannah tahta aqdam al ummahat, they say, heaven is
Yeah.
under the feet of mothers. What does that do for women's rights? Like, that's
It's
what is
talking
that?
about a mother. It's a typical like man who just values his mom, but that doesn't mean he values other women.
And
Um,
saying that basically, like, they're you have to appease them or like be good to them so that you enter heaven is still all in the metaphysical, unseen world of nonsense. And she has to be a
We
mother
want
to
like
qualify.
here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
So I see it as I saw it as a problem that we're still working within the framework of this barbaric existence or primitive existence of desert and protection and this and that, when it should have strived to create a better environment for everyone rather than say that men are maintainers and will always keep it that way when the world has moved on and the religion has not adapted. It really hasn't.
It also like assumes gender roles that are very fixated. I get that gender roles are still a part of our society, but religion, like that's the only. I mean, the inheritance thing. What makes you assume that everyone's gonna get married and have children? Like maybe a woman doesn't want to get married and have children, so give her like a full inheritance, just like the man. So yeah, that's why it just like gender roles can be okay, but I don't like it when it's very like fixated and unchangeable.
It should be, there should be enough room that people who don't want to conform to the specific roles can still thrive. So if someone doesn't want to be a mother or a wife, she can still have the same ability to live alone or be a wife without being a mother and still get the same rights. Like you said, it's infantilizing and keeps them. What is framed as a right is actually what's causing oppression. Like the right for a woman to be provided for means that she has no agency, right? Because she is provided for. It's a cycle. So yeah, it doesn't make sense when you think about it from when you see what progress we've made in the secular world, or just not just a secular world, in systems that are not Islamic. And couldn't God have thought of that? Or a few economists at the time? Like, yeah.
It just it says that it's a clear message. There's like a lot of interpretations. Obviously, there's like a mainstream interpretation, but even that like sometimes doesn't make sense. The hijab thing, it's just one ayah, and some people can still interpret it differently. So if God really wanted to give us a message of His existence, I think there would have been a better way than a piece of literature. Maybe He can put it on our hearts somehow. I don't know how, but He's God. He should have found a way.
Hey, a series of YouTube videos would make more sense than the Quran, to be honest, because then He can explain everything. Yeah. But yeah, we don't understand God's wisdom, so it is what it is, I suppose.
Every answer, they give you that. They tell you that all the time.
Yeah.
And even if you agree with, like, let's say you're like a reformed Muslim, a lot of people would equate that khalas. And this is being an atheist to them because of the ideas are just so vastly different. If I told my dad that I wanted a more secular society, he would be really mad and not agree with that. Though, yeah, we always idealize the West. We don't live in a Western country. We live in the Middle East. So, yeah, we would love to move there, but we don't agree with anything from their values. The same values that give you the rights to live there. Yeah.
It is frustrating, but yeah. I'm glad that you said you only recently got to those conclusions. I'm glad that you're hopefully more at peace than you were when you were in the middle of the confusion. I hope.
I don't know about that.
No?
The thing is, when it just felt like I lived in a lie, so it just gave me a very pessimistic view of the world. Right now I'm better, but definitely in March I was just horrible. I was very bad. It didn't show much on the surface, but I think I disbelieved for a while, for 2 years, but I just didn't want to admit it to myself. I even stopped praying at some point, even though I called myself Muslim more confidently, because I didn't believe it. I was like, if there was a God and He was judging my prayers would not even be accepted because I don't believe while I'm praying. So I was like, what's the point?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I've had even Muslims in my personal life tell me this thing where they say, I know if I thought about it more, I'm going to apostatize. I know if I look into it, like I know I'm an in denial kafir. It's just in right now. It's funny how a kafir is an in denial believer, right? So they're actually the opposite. That's very ironic. I don't know how they do it, but not everyone's able to do it, as you clearly aren't. So, yeah, for those people who can't do it, you just have to face your fears, I suppose. And I know you said it was very distressing mentally. It gets better with time, and there's a lot of pessimism that comes with it at first, and shock and betrayal, right? Like how could this, I can't trust anyone, I can't trust anything anymore because I believed in this lie for so long. And it gets better, and you'll find your bearings for sure. I mean, yeah, if you made it this far alone, you'll be fine.
I think I'm gonna be fine. If I look at it from, I think it's gonna be fine. It's just when it's so fresh, it hurts. The only thing I'm hoping for in the future is I can be myself around people that I like. I don't even care about like being myself outside of society, but my close knit community, say my family, my siblings, my friends. I need a society that would accept me as I am. Being queer was already hard enough, but being queer was easy to admit. But being an ex-Muslim or a disbeliever was infinitely harder. It was way like more hard for me. I denied for way more longer than being queer. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you've faced both right now. So hopefully you can be more like yourself now.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, before you go, Lord's Need, and everyone watching, by the way, says Hassan Alwan's videos might be very good for Miya to watch, especially his ones for doubting and recent ex-Muslims. I don't know if you're familiar with Hassan Alwan, are you?
Yeah. I was going to actually mention his name right now because, because he posted it like such a long time ago. You see that he's at a better place now. And in the beginning, he talks in his videos about how like it took a toll on him mentally, and he did he had an attempt at suicide even once. So it was really, really bad for him. And then now I think obviously got better with time. So I do like him, and I watched his videos. He's a very well-spoken person.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. I do recommend him to everyone here, especially that he has this aura of sort of a trustworthy source, like you should still verify everything he's saying. I'm not saying take anyone's word for granted, but when you see someone like myself, like a lot of people think, oh, what does this kid know about life? Of course he's misled. Of course he doesn't know anything. But when you see someone with experience and age and wisdom talking about it, there's a bit of trust that gets your guard down, especially if you're a recent ex-Muslim or doubting Muslim. So definitely recommend him. Yeah.
That's it. Thank you so much for listening. I might join one time in the future to see an update or something.
Yeah, we'd be happy to have you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one, Miya. Bye-bye. I said we would be happy to have you back on behalf of everyone here. I'm sure you won't disagree, but yeah, I'm going to speak on your behalf now, I suppose. Okay, I'll take a couple of comments and then I'll get to the last caller. Thank you all for being here so far. Misha Hector says, hope you're feeling better, Apostle Aladdin. As you can tell, my voice is starting to go, but thank you. I do feel relatively well. The Noon, long time no see, says, I find it paradoxical when Muslims say the West is a moral whole, but also celebrating the growth of Islam in the West. Isn't it possible the growth of Islam is attributed to the West's immorality? I mean, I could see why they think the growth of Islam is like a cure to the West's immorality. But you're saying, what if Islam is growing because of the West's immorality? I guess in that way, it's a good thing that the West is immoral for Islam to fix it in their mind. I don't know. But the thing is that the things that the West, so-called West, the issues that they tackle openly, like domestic abuse, like alcoholism, like a bunch of other child abuse, there's still stigma, there's still cover-ups, but they're more openly talked about. In Muslim countries and communities, they're hush-hush, not even, oh, it doesn't happen, or if it happens, it's not real Islam, whatever. It makes it look as if these issues don't exist when sometimes they exist in higher percentages, like spousal abuse. Marital rape is not even legally a thing in a lot of these countries because Islamically it is not a crime. So it may look like the West is so-called immoral, but when you really look into it, it just seems like they air their dirty laundry more because that's how you get progress. Like you need to call out people who make not just mistakes, but people who do these criminal things, whether it makes your religion or your country look bad or not. That's the problem. There's a lot of wanting to put a good face for Islam and Muslim communities that causes people to hide these issues in what they think are only family issues. They shouldn't be out in the open. Oh, it seems like the last caller, Waraqah, has left. He might be back in a couple of minutes. If not, I'll just continue reading a few comments and I'll take some questions from the live chat or interacting with the live chat. H says, my parents forcing me to read the Quran again recently with translation only made me stray further. So that was all part of Allah's plan. And he used your parents as pawns, or Shaitan's plan, I suppose. Tay1, I'm sorry I couldn't take your call today, but says, thank you for the reply. I will type in here in brief what I generally wanted to talk about. I wanted to advise all my fellow ex-Muslims that no matter how hard it gets, once you can, distance yourself from religion. It's gone, it's done. It's easy to continue obsessing over it and make it part of your identity, but that's not the way. I agree, but I think we have to be careful with the phrasing of making it part of your identity. So like I said earlier, I see it as analogous with, though please don't, raise your pitchforks about this. I think there's a lot of similarities between this kind of, the Black community, for example, and ex-Muslim community. It's like telling someone who is Black, stop making it part of your identity. And I know it's not exactly analogous, but what I mean to say is sometimes it's important to highlight this because it is a common factor that builds a community of people who are marginalized elsewhere. But I hope we get to a point where it doesn't have to be mentioned at all, just like people don't have to mention. I mean, people still struggle with leaving Christianity and other religions, but it's not as stigmatized of a problem to the point that they can continue living their life, and the only people who know or care that they're ex-Christian are their immediate relatives. But with Islam, it's a global thing. So yeah, most of the ex-Muslims that I know, and myself personally, in my personal life, I don't mention being an ex-Muslim in any way. If it's the problem is we look and we sound Muslim, right? We have Muslim names and Muslim looks and all that stuff. So we're presumed Muslim. So that's why it comes up more often than a white guy called Chris who's not Christian anymore, right? No one would presume that he's Christian and then he has to explain, I'm ex-Christian. But with us, there's that clarification that we sometimes have to make. But I do agree, try to distance yourself. Islam does follow you, unfortunately, and it follows, it's part of your life and your community. If you are able to continue your life by separating from these aspects or coexisting with whoever family members are okay with how you are, like if you find that good balance, then continue doing that. But obviously, don't do what I'm doing. The only reason why I'm still involved in this community is because I see a need for it. It does help me. Like I'm learning as I go about myself and about other people, and I see a value in doing this, but it is not something that I envisioned myself doing. I wouldn't recommend that you keep digging into Islam if you've already found your answer and you've found that balance in your life. If it's some kind of academic curiosity or curiosity in general that doesn't harm you, go for it. But make sure to take breaks and, get your space. Let's see. Benjamin says, we'll be grateful to hear from Miya again. Yeah, we hope to have her here again. Waraqah is back. We'll have him in a minute. Just a couple more comments. So about the hadith about the Jannah is under the feet of women or mothers. Likos 83 says, why does everything have to be under feet? Did the creator of these ideas have a foot fetish? Yeah, it's a metaphor of, again, it's all about high and low and very old ways of thinking about hierarchy and visualizing things, I guess. So under the feet, meaning you're below them, beneath them in hierarchy. But yeah. And AAR says, we're talking about a God that's the most X or Y, yet the only thing he really needed to be was the most clear, but was unable to do that. Not the only thing, but would have really come in handy. All right, I am getting to the next caller and the final caller. Waraqah, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Waraqah, how's it going?
Hi, not too bad. What about you?
I'm not too bad, thank you.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, can hear you okay.
Okay. So yeah, I wanted to comment on what you were just saying with Miya in the comments. I think it's very hard to distance yourself from Islam once you left it, because we were used to believe all our life that the only objective is to be a good Muslim, and that this life has no value besides that. So when you learn, or when you start believing that this is not the case, it's like your whole world falls apart, and it's really difficult to take that in. It's a really, I would say, traumatic experience. So maybe I think outsiders don't really realize it, and or even believers. That's why they always say, "Hey, you left Islam, but why do you keep talking about it?" But we wish we could stop talking about it. It's just it's always in our lives around us, and it's really difficult once you stop believing in it, because in your family everyone believes, and you start seeing all the problems in the religion, but you're not able to talk about them. You feel very isolated, and yeah, so it's really important to have these spaces and like your content. So thank you for that, and yeah, it really helps to know that we are not the only ones thinking this way. To see other people having the same thoughts, because when we first have them, we think we are the only ones, and so yeah, thank you for that.
Of course.
I also wanted to talk about a thing you made a video about, which is about the danger of putting faith over reason. So I could really relate to that when I saw your video. It really hit home, because I had this experience when I was in my doubting phase. So just to give a quick some quick context, I wasn't let's say a very devout Muslim for most part of my life, meaning that for instance, I didn't do the daily prayers, but I had a really strong belief. So it's just that in my surrounding, I was my family is moderate, so it was okay not to pray, but believing in Allah and Islam was still very, very, very important. So, for instance, yeah, I wasn't like my biggest fear, sorry, really was to be in hell, and so let's say, as soon as I was in a dangerous situation, or I took the plane, I always thought, to say the Shahada, things like that, just to reassure myself. But during the pandemic. So I think like Miya, who started to learn or at least think more about the faith. I think it was the case for many people because the world was at a pause, so we had time to maybe reevaluate our ways of living and many things. And for me, it was the time to learn more about my religion. And so, I always had this idea that the religion is perfect, people aren't, and if there are problematic things that are happening in the Islamic background, I would say, like for instance terrorist attacks and all of that, I would say it's just just people who are corrupting the text, just using them to do bad things, and there's no violence in Islam, there's nothing like that. I really bought into it. So when I started wanting to learn more about Islam, I kind of like read the biography of the Prophet, and I read the Quran cover to cover during the month of Ramadan, and it was really like life changing because I discovered all the violent things and not so moral or at least things I wouldn't have expected to be there. So, for instance, the slavery, sexual slavery. I already have heard of it before, but I thought it would be maybe in a more like less present way, or less more anecdotal. But then so I kept having these discoveries, and I would say to myself, why there needs to be an answer. So I kept looking for answers, but the more I dig into it, the less it makes sense, and the more I discover problems. And I would. So at one point, like for me, it was impossible to leave Islam. It was really out of the question. So it was really frustrating having to convince myself of things that didn't make sense. It was like mental torture, and also one very, like I fell into a very dangerous way of thinking. Like I thought, okay, so this is the perfect religion. I have been raised in the West, and if I learn about those things in the religion, I find them immoral or barbaric, it means that I have been influenced by the West, and now I need to. Okay, everyone around me just don't care enough about religion, or they didn't understand. So I had to, let's say, so this is what Islam is about, and I need to I need to accept it. So all the all the punishments with Sharia law, all those things, I said to myself, this is the best system. I need to I just have been influenced by the West, and I felt that I had to, because many things didn't make sense. For instance, why is it so bad to listen to music? Why is it so bad to use interest, financial interest? And it didn't make sense to me, and so I started to fall into that that whole of blind faith, and I at one it was like I even started thinking about relocating to a Muslim country so that I would get rid of the influence, so that I wouldn't have to let's say work in a mixed environment. I wouldn't have to see that all that Western culture, and but the religion, there are still many things that like didn't make sense, and I had to force myself to accept them. So it was like a mental torture. Like for instance, in the Quran was why does God talk like the earth is flat? Why does he talk about sperm coming from between the backbone and the ribs? Why does he talk about Adam and Eve and no mention at all of evolution? And so I forget where I wanted to go with this, but I just remember it started to get dangerous because I was so frustrated by all these nonsensical things that I had to input into my mind, that I wanted to started wanting to get into action, to do something, even to maybe to fight or something, because all of this is because of the influence of the West, and I knew that living in the West, I wouldn't be able to withhold the religion, so I had to leave everything and do something else. And at one point, when the doubts started accumulating and all of this, a period which lasted about 3 months. Sorry. At one point, I felt that I was at risk of disbelieving. So, and for me, that was the worst thing. I couldn't even envision it. So, at one point, I even wished to die so bad, because I knew that sooner or later I would end up stop believing, and I didn't want to end up in hell. So I remember in my prayers, at first I would just ask God to give me more faith, and at one point I would just ask him to, kill me before I disbelieve.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. So yeah, that's just to show people how far this kind of beliefs can go. Maybe don't downplay it when you say, "Hey, you just left Islam. Why you keep talking about it?" Because it's really hard when I remember when I first came to the realization that Islam is false. I told myself, life is so uncertain, and there are many uncertainties, but the only thing I was sure of is that I would stay a Muslim. And when that was gone, I felt like, well, there's nothing to stand on there. There's nothing certain. I was so sure about this. I even wanted to die because of this. And so that's why it's dangerous to tell people, hey, stop using your mind to think just have faith. It's really not a way to be able to detect when you are wrong and when you might do bad things.
Yeah,
So
when you distrust yourself and your mind, you're under the mercy of whatever beliefs you're able to adopt or like unable to push away. And so if you don't mind me asking this question, because it's been on my mind too, could this explain why some people feel the need to fight in terrorist organizations, reinforcing the faith to the extreme when confronted by reality? Like, does it cause
yeah,
some kind of panic where you think, if I would rather die, I'd rather die for the cause of Allah, and nothing makes sense anyway, so I'm just going to believe that this is good?
yeah, I definitely felt that kind of thing. I wanted to maybe fight, but not like do suicide bombings, because I know that that thing is really like useless. It's not fighting for the cause; it's just killing innocent people. But maybe something about if there was a war between Muslims and oppressors, not just unbelievers, oppressors. It's important. But yeah, well, I really wished I could participate in that. But yeah, of course, it was just a wish. Unfortunately, it went away very fast when I was finally able to really ask myself, hey, maybe if you're willing to take all those risks and change, then you should at least make sure that what you believe in stands have good grounds, stands on good grounds, so I started asking myself, well, if I was an unbeliever and I read about Islam on one go, what would I think of it? And I think what saved me was thinking, because of course we, as Muslims, we expect of other people that they take away their biases, their bias, and they examine the faith or the religion objectively. So I tried to do that, and I realized that as soon as I tried to do that, it started to fall apart. And but then there was still this faith holding me back. And the thing that saved me was thinking about the Quraysh and the start of Islam, where I asked myself, hey, if I was a Quraysh when Islam came, would I have kept my beliefs, or would I have accepted Islam? So I said, if I wanted, if I wish that I have accepted Islam in that setting, then I need to apply the same, the same open. I need to have the same open-mindedness and skepticism about my current beliefs, and given the new information, really, make the right thinking. So this is really like. I also, as I said to myself, this is what God tells in the Quran, to accept Islam, to think.
Yeah,
But
أَفَلَا
of
يَتَفَكَّرُونَ?
course,
Like, do they not think? Do they not ponder? Yeah,
exactly. But of course, it's only to accept Islam, not for other outcomes. But that's what saved me. And but yeah, definitely, I think that's the kind of search for meaning and the shift between these old barbaric content that we find in the religion, the shift between that and the current world we live in, that can cause someone to think, hey, if I find this barbaric, it means I have to go back to, we have to go back to that old so-called perfect society. But
it's dangerous when they poison the well that is your mind, and then you can't trust anything there because you think, even if you truly were influenced by the West in one way or another, it makes you want to throw out your judgment completely and just cling on to what you believe is the higher truth. And we all know now how dangerous that is. But I'm glad you made it out of there.
Thank you.
And you know what? It's kind of funny how the pandemic is when a lot of people. I think the pandemic created a wave of apostasy. I genuinely believe that.
I do think so as well.
Dug into it more in the pandemic, I myself as well, so I can relate.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing in disguise. See Allah's wisdom.
Yeah, I agree.
What was the? I think it was a verse, right? وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. Yeah, do not hate something and it might be good for you. So I suppose the pandemic has given us a wave of apostasy and time to think about what matters in life. Anyway, I'm glad that you're able to reach these conclusions and you didn't fall too deep in the too far in the deep end.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before you went?
No, I think that's all. Maybe another time I can talk about another specific subject, but that's all I wanted to talk about this time. Thank you a lot for hosting this, and I hope you get better with your cold or something.
Thank you. Yeah. Of course, I'm going to be having streams in the future, so I hope to see you there next time.
Okay. See you then.
Take care. Bye-bye, Waraqah.
Bye.
All right. So thank you again, Waraqah, for calling. Waraqah ibn Nawfal. So, I saw a couple of comments, but I lost them. And I actually forgot to say something on stream. Something that I didn't realize up until this conversation. So for years before leaving Islam or apostasy or whatever you want to call it, I had this weird thought cross my mind somewhat often, not concerningly often, but more often than it should, of a scenario where I'm able to die for a good reason. And I'm not talking about some kind of cause or some kind of big event or I do something, like that's not what I'm hinting at, but I don't know, some kind of accident or event goes on and I try to save someone and I die for a good cause that is not haram, so I can go to heaven a martyr, a shaheed, and not have to worry about the judgment of how good of a believer was I, because I was struggling with being a believer, not just struggling with the rituals of how many times you pray and everything. It's deep down, I was trying so hard to believe and I couldn't. And I didn't realize till now. I just thought it was some kind of selflessness in me that, of course, I want to save someone and die for a good cause. No, hopefully everyone wants to live. And to have this fantasy, even though I wasn't like suicidal about it or anything, to have this fantasy that I would rather die and help someone in the process, but so I could avoid this bizarre test of faith that I cannot pass because there's nothing I'm doing that's helping me pass it. No matter what I do, it's not helping me pass it. It's disturbing. And thankfully for me, it wasn't intense enough to ruin my mental health or cause me to do or think of anything extreme. But I can completely see how that could push someone to cause such an event or participate in an event that they think, some kind of suicidal attack or something that they think is good, that God wanted me to do so, or at least I will die a martyr, to escape all of these conflicting voices in their heads, or at least conflicting views, not necessarily voices. So yeah, I wanted to share that a lot of us go through it, and there's no shame in having these thoughts. It's just your mind trying to make sense of the nonsensical. And in that situation, it makes more sense to want to die than go to eternal hell, but to die in a way that ensures you heaven. And that's sad because, as we hopefully realize, there is no guarantee of heaven and hell. In fact, more likely than not, there is no heaven and hell in the Islamic sense at all. So that person would have lost their life for nothing in the afterlife. So that is why I think it is dangerous to hinge our whole lives on this idea of something that probably will not happen after death. It's not simply about, why don't you just follow the rules and you have nothing to lose? There's a lot to lose. There's so much to lose. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that was not too depressing of a note to end on. I'm glad I made it through the whole stream, even though now my voice is absolutely gone. Thank you everyone for joining. And again, I'm going to plug my second channel, check the description, where I talk about or just read stories about another topic. I haven't posted a video yet, but you should go check it out. And if you want to join one of these streams, next time I will also be announcing it a few days later. And I will try to have a regular schedule as soon as possible to be inclusive of all time zones. But till then, just keep an eye on the community posts, notifications, and my YouTube page. You'll see these being posted. And I post the link to join a few minutes before the actual stream. Again, thank you, everybody. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or night. As always, think critically and think for yourself.